Man.
The broadcast frequencies shift to avoid interference. When Atlas moves behind the sun from Earth's perspective, the transmission power increases to maintain signal strength. That's not automated response, that's intelligent adaptation. Beyond tracking and signals data, China
Hi, Di, good to see ya.
It reveals surface features unlike anything seen on natural space objects. The Chinese space-based telescopes captured Atlas from multiple angles as it rotated, creating detailed three-dimensional maps of its structure. What those maps show has sparked intense debate in the astronomical community. Atlas's surface displays geometric patterns, areas with regular spacing, precise angles, and symmetrical arrangements that look extremely unlikely to form through natural processes. One region shows what appears to be
I'm not picking you up. You're wet. No.
Each approximately 50 meters
How come you're getting wet?
Arranged in perfect rows. A planetary geologist who analyzed the imagery described the anomaly. Natural geological processes create irregular features, random crater
Yeah, it wasn't yesterday's chat fun, Di. I had a good time yesterday.
impacts, uneven weathering, chaotic fracturing. What we're seeing on ATLAS are ordered patterns, regularity, precision. Those characteristics suggest artificial construction rather than natural formation.
No!
Another striking feature captured in the Chinese images.
This bloody dog.
ATLAS appears to have distinct sections with different surface properties. Some areas are highly reflective, almost mirror-like. Other regions are matte and dark. The boundaries between these sections are sharp and linear, not the gradual transitions you'd expect from natural material variations. Most intriguing are the thermal
You are all wet. I am not
Chinese
picking you up.
telescopes detected heat sources on ATLAS's surface that don't correlate with solar heating patterns. Some areas are warmer than they should be based on sun exposure, suggesting internal heat generation. That implies active power systems operating inside the object.
Oh, dog, will you just give me a break? Just for an hour, give me a bloody break.
Followed by cooling, then heating again in predictable patterns. One area pulses with a heat signature that cycles every 4.7 hours with clock-like precision. Natural thermal processes don't maintain that kind of regularity.
Diane, I'm not joking. Last night when I went to sleep, she woke me up 11 times to pick her up. So I had 11 breaks in my sleep last night. I'm short-tempered. She's just high maintenance, and I'm telling you, I love her to death, but she's really pissing me off. She can't help it, but man, she's frustrating, and she just drains the energy out of you. 11 times last night I had to pick her up. If I ignored her, she started barking real loud.
China's spectroscopic analysis adds another layer of mystery. The composition readings show materials that are extremely rare in natural space objects.
She's a princess then, Di.
Specific alloy combinations that require precise temperature control and manufacturing processes.
You're all wet. Go away.
Concentrations that don't match any known asteroid or comet profiles. The data reveals significant quantities of titanium, vanadium, and rare earth elements in configurations that suggest they were deliberately combined rather than naturally formed. These are the kinds of material signatures you'd expect from advanced manufacturing, not from a primordial chunk of ice and rock. Perhaps the most damning evidence in China's release concerns Atlas's trajectory, the path it's taking through our solar system. And this is where things get truly unsettling. NASA's official trajectory data shows Atlas following a hyperbolic orbit, coming in from interstellar space, swinging past the sun, and heading back out. A simple one-time visit from a traveler passing through.
You are wet.
But China's tracking data tells a completely different story. The Chinese observations show Atlas making deliberate course adjustments that have systematically altered its path. These aren't minor gravitational perturbations. These are substantial trajectory modifications that have changed where Atlas is heading. An aerospace analyst examining the Chinese trajectory calculations explained the implications. Based on Atlas's original approach vector, it should have passed through the inner solar system and departed. But the course corrections documented in China's data have bent that trajectory significantly. Atlas is no longer on an escape path. It's maneuvering into a trajectory that keeps it in the inner solar system. The data shows Atlas making specific adjustments at key points, burning engines when gravitational assists from planets would maximize the efficiency of each maneuver. This is exactly what spacecraft mission planners do when designing fuel-efficient trajectories. It's sophisticated.
Go outside and dry off, and then I'll pick you up when you're not wet.
Most concerning, the modified trajectory brings ATLAS much closer to Earth than its original path would have.
God, you're such a...
China's calculations project Atlas passing within 3 million miles of our planet, less than 13 times the distance to the moon. From an astronomical perspective, that's uncomfortably close. But here's what really has analysts worried. Atlas's current trajectory has it approaching Earth from a specific angle that would make it extremely difficult to observe from ground-based telescopes during the closest approach. The geometry positions Atlas in a location where it would be visible primarily from space-based assets and a narrow band of Earth's surface. A military space analyst described this positioning as suspicious. If you wanted to approach Earth while minimizing observation opportunities, while reducing the number of tracking stations that could monitor you, you'd choose almost exactly this trajectory. It's either an incredible coincidence or it's deliberate planning by whatever controls ATLAS. The Chinese data also shows...
Hey, Shawnee, good to see ya.
What's called orbital reconnaissance, flying past targets at distant...
Guys, if this is legit, this gives a lot of credence to Atlas being a mothership.
And angles optimal for detailed observation. Atlas made these kinds of passes near Mars, gathering data about the planet's composition, atmosphere, and surface features. The same pattern appears to be setting up for Earth. China's trajectory projections show multiple possible futures for ATLAS after its Earth approach. Some paths show it continuing deeper into the solar system. Others show it using Earth's gravity.
Hey tradies, meet Service Finder. The #1 software for the trades is now in Australia. Share job details between field and office.
Even back toward Mars. But several of China's projections show something that NASA has never publicly discussed: the possibility of ATLAS inserting itself into orbit around Earth. The calculations show it's entirely possible given ATLAS's demonstrated propulsion capabilities and current trajectory. Atlas could, if it chose to, park itself in Earth orbit and stay there indefinitely. China's radio telescope data reveals something NASA has barely acknowledged. ATLAS isn't just broadcasting randomly into space, it's attempting to communicate. And the sophistication of those attempts suggests intelligence that understands communication theory and information encoding.
Go away.
The Chinese data shows
away.
Atlas's transmissions evolving over time. Early broadcasts were simple mathematical sequences, prime numbers, geometric ratios, basic constants that any technological civilization would recognize. But as weeks passed, the transmissions became more complex. Recent signals captured by China's arrays include what appears to be encoded imagery.
Just go for a
Data
walk,
patterns
something,
that,
will ya?
when processed through various
Friggin' hell.
decoding algorithms, might represent visual information. Some researchers believe these could be star charts showing ATLAS's point of origin. Others think they might be diagrams explaining ATLAS's purpose or capabilities. A communications engineer
I'm done with this. You're
analyzing the
going out
Chinese
there. Come
data
on.
described the
Come on.
sophistication. These transmissions use layered encoding, multiple types of information packed into the same signal.
Come on.
There are clearly identifiable header sequences that mark the beginning of data packets. There are error correction codes that would allow reconstruction of information even if parts of the signal were lost. This is professional-grade communication engineering. What makes this particularly intriguing is that ATLAS's signals show adaptation. When China's radio telescopes transmitted experimental responses toward ATLAS, the object's subsequent broadcasts incorporated elements from those transmissions. Atlas is listening, processing what it receives, and adjusting its messages accordingly. This represents
Diane, I put her out the room and shut the door. Even awake, she takes up every minute of my whole life evolves around this bloody dog.
Interactive communication, not just blind broadcasting. Atlas appears to be trying to establish a dialogue, testing different approaches, modifying its strategy based on whether it receives responses. That's behavior consistent with intelligence actively seeking contact. The Chinese data also reveals that Atlas's transmissions aren't omnidirectional, they're beamed. Focused broadcasts aimed at specific targets. Some transmissions are directed toward Earth, others aim toward locations in deep space, possibly communicating with origin points or other objects we haven't detected yet. Most intriguingly, China captured Atlas, sending focused transmissions towards specific Earth locations, not just toward the planet generally, but toward particular
Wow, that's interesting.
coordinates on the surface. These targeted beams were aimed at major population centers, significant geographical features, and, interestingly, toward the locations of large radio telescope arrays. It's as if Atlas knows where our communication facilities are located and is specifically trying to get their attention, either through remarkable detection of our electromagnetic emissions or through prior mapping of Earth's infrastructure. ATLAS has identified where humans might be listening and is directing messages to those locations. China's release of this data puts NASA in an impossible position, and their continued silence speaks volumes about what they know but aren't saying. When another major space agency publicly contradicts your official narrative with hard evidence, standard protocol is to respond. You either refute the claims with your own data.
I love her to death, but she kept me up 11 times last night, and I'm just buggered. I'm in a bad temper because of it. It was a very patchy sleep. I love her to death, but I need a break from her, and Gabe's not here, so she's just hanging off me.
Acknowledge the discrepancies and explain them, or engage in diplomatic channels to reconcile the differences. NASA has done none of these things. No press conference addressing China's findings, no technical paper challenging their methodology, no statement explaining why Chinese observations would differ so dramatically from American data. Just silence. A former NASA public affairs specialist explained what this silence likely means. NASA doesn't deny China's findings because they can't. Their own classified tracking data probably shows the same things China just released. The silence is
Diane, we had a basset hound when I was a kid.
Confusion. It's calculated strategy.
I remember having a fight with a kid and his dad come up to complain, and our basset dog attacked him.
To avoid confirming information they're not ready to share publicly. But the silence creates its own problems. Every day NASA says nothing, more people see China's evidence and start questioning why America's space agency won't respond. The void of information gets filled with speculation, conspiracy theories, and erosion of public trust in NASA's credibility. Some analysts believe NASA's silence is coordinated with other Western space agencies.
Di, she's too much energy for Mum.
To present a unified front of no comment.
And she loves me. She likes Mum, but she loves me. I'm a dad.
Rather than validate China's claims. But that strategy is failing as more nations review China's data and find it compelling. Russia quickly released a statement agreeing with China's assessment. India's space program published observations that align with the Chinese findings. Even some European scientists have broken ranks to say China's data matches what they've privately observed but weren't authorized to discuss publicly.
Wow.
NASA might also be silent because acknowledging China's evidence would require explaining why they've been downplaying these capabilities for months. Admitting that Atlas has propulsion, maneuvering ability, and communication systems would validate everyone who questioned NASA's just a comet narrative. It would make NASA look either incompetent for not detecting these features or deceptive for hiding them. There's also the national security dimension. If Atlas represents advanced technology that could potentially be studied, understood, or even retrieved, the technology has
You got to beat the mothership first.
enormous strategic value. The nation that makes first contact, establishes communication, or gains access to ATLAS's systems would possess a massive technological advantage. From this perspective, NASA's silence might be part of a strategy to avoid revealing the full extent of American intelligence about Atlas. By saying nothing, they don't confirm what they know, don't acknowledge capabilities that China revealed, and maintain flexibility for classified response options. But perhaps the most concerning explanation for NASA's silence, they're just as confused as everyone else. Maybe NASA doesn't have good answers for what China revealed. Maybe their own analysis is incomplete or contradictory. Maybe they're staying quiet because they genuinely don't know what Atlas is or what it's doing, and admitting that uncertainty would be worse than saying nothing. China's release of ATLAS data has triggered responses from nations and space agencies worldwide, and the picture emerging suggests a planet deeply divided about how to handle this situation. Multiple countries have upgraded their space surveillance capabilities specifically to track Atlas independently. India announced accelerated deployment of new tracking stations. Australia is coordinating with Asian partners to create a Southern Hemisphere observation network. Even smaller nations are dedicating resources to ATLAS monitoring, unwilling to rely solely on NASA or Chinese data. The European Space Agency held emergency consultations with member nations about coordinating a unified European response. The discussions reportedly focused on whether to align with NASA's cautious approach or acknowledge the validity of China's more alarming findings. The fact that they're even debating this shows how uncertain the situation has become. International scientific organizations are also split. Some astronomy groups have called for complete transparency about all Atlas observations.
Di, I'm going to play that. It does look interesting. I wonder if it's where Ron White found the wheels of the chariots. Okay, I'm going to play that, Di.
Explorers have claimed for years. Hundreds of chariot wheels, horse skeletons, and human remains perfectly preserved in coral.
Is there any physical evidence on the seabed? Yes, there is. And we have some examples. Skeletons of humans, skeleton parts of horses and bulls, chariot wheels.
This finding doesn't just support an ancient story, it threatens to...
Did he say horses and bulls? I'm pretty sure he did.
Skeletons of humans, skeleton parts of horses and bulls, chariot wheels.
Nah, symbols.
Just
Symbols, he said, not bulls.
support an ancient story, it threatens to rewrite it. And get this, Egyptologists are completely silent. The implications of this find are staggering, and the story behind it is even crazier. The $10 million secret. So here's the deal. In late 2024,
I knew
a small, highly secretive team of divers, engineers, and underwater archaeologists launched a...
Diane, how blessed was Ron White? He found all the important things he found. The Ark of the Covenant, Noah's Ark, the wheels, Sodom and Gomorrah. What a great man of God. He must have had a really exciting time in his head.
private expedition. This wasn't a university-funded project you read about in a boring journal. This was a quiet, covert operation funded by private backers to the tune of over $10 million. They were equipped with technology that most archaeological teams can only dream of. Advanced side-scan sonar, military-grade remotely operated vehicles, ROVS, with high-definition 4K cameras and hypersensitive magnetometers. They weren't just looking for old pots or a stray anchor, they were looking for something specific. Something that mainstream science insisted did not exist. They were looking for the lost army of the Pharaoh. For decades, rumors and amateur reports had pointed to a very specific spot
You get
in
wet
the Red
again, you
Sea's
lock
Gulf
out
of
again, all
Bangkok.
right?
The stories, often dismissed as
You
fantasy,
get wet,
told
I'm
of
chucking you out.
coral-encrusted chariot wheels, scattered bones, and the physical remnants of the Egyptian army from the biblical Exodus. For just as long, mainstream Egyptology and archaeology had laughed off these claims. They called it pseudoscience, a religious hoax, and wishful
That's it, you're
thinking.
drawing now.
But this new team had a map. It was a map based on those old ridiculed claims, and they had the technology to see what no one else could, or perhaps what no one else wanted to see. They started their search in a wide grid. For days, the sonar pulsed into the deep, scanning the seabed. Then the sonar operator saw it. Strange, symmetrical anomalies on his screen. These shapes were not natural rock formations. They were round, precise, and most chillingly, they were arranged in a...
Diane, God did say he'll reveal things in the end days, didn't he? Or something like that. Like something hidden will be shown and things like that.
long linear trail. The team was stunned. The shapes looked exactly like wheels, hundreds of them. They deployed the ROV, a small submarine robot, sending it down into the dark, cold water hundreds of feet below the surface. The sub's high-powered lights cut through the gloom. At first, there was nothing but sand and rock. And then, suddenly, there it was, emerging
Hundreds of feet. I didn't realize it was so deep.
from the sand, a perfectly round shape, completely covered in coral. It was, without a doubt, a wheel, an ancient spoked chariot wheel. As the ROV glided forward, its robotic arm brushing away the silt, another came into view, and another, and another. It was a debris field, a massive one. The site stretched for nearly a mile and a half. This was it. The team knew they had to go down themselves. This was too big to just observe through a camera. Elite deep sea divers, many of them ex-military, prepared for a difficult and dangerous dive. As they descended into the silent deep, the sheer scale of the cataclysm became terrifyingly clear. This was not a single shipwreck. This was a military catastrophe, frozen in time. The seafloor was a war zone. It was littered with the remains of a fleeing or perhaps charging army. They saw wheels with 4 spokes, 6 spokes, and even 8 spokes. This detail is a massive wow factor. Why? Because these specific designs match perfectly the different types of chariots used by the Egyptian army during the New Kingdom period. The 4
Wow, that's interesting.
spoked wheels were older, but the 6 and 8 spoked wheels were the new high-tech stable designs used by elite warriors and the pharaoh himself. Finding them all jumbled together was a snapshot of the entire Egyptian chariot corps. But it wasn't just wheels. They found twisted metal fragments that looked
Diane, the Christians are the worst to talk to online, aren't they? They're just so arrogant.
like axles. They found what appeared to be the tangled rectangular remains of the chariot cabs themselves, now just piles of corroded bronze and petrified wood, all fused to the seafloor by centuries of relentless coral growth. What most people don't realize is that the divers reported an overwhelming, eerie feeling of dread. They were swimming through an underwater graveyard, and then they found the bones. Tangled within the chariot debris, just as the old reports had claimed, were bone shards. Hundreds, possibly thousands of them. Some were clearly animal, the skulls, ribs, and femurs of horses, exactly where they would be if they were still harnessed to the chariots. But others were unmistakably human. Spines, pelvic bones, and fragments of skulls all mixed together in a chaotic, terrible jumble. This wasn't just an equipment dump. This was the final watery resting place of hundreds, maybe thousands, of elite soldiers and their animals who all perished in a single, sudden, and violent event. The crazy part? One of the divers, sweeping a high-powered light over a mound of coral, caught a faint, unnatural glimmer. Beneath the crust, something was shining.
Gold.
A dull, unmistakable golden sheen.
Yeah.
This matched the most incredible, most dismissed claim of all, that among the Army's wreckage was a single gold-plated chariot wheel, perhaps belonging to a high-ranking general or even the pharaoh. They couldn't touch it. The coral had locked it in place. To try and remove it would be to destroy it. The team documented everything. They took thousands of high-resolution photos and hours of high-definition video. They knew what they had found would send shockwaves through the world.
Hey, Voss,
They
good
had
to see you,
found
bro.
visible, tangible evidence that seemed to support one of the oldest and most foundational stories in human history. But here's the catch. This discovery, as monumental as it was, also opened up a massive can of worms. It challenged everything mainstream Egyptology had taught for the last 100 years. And that is why, when the initial findings were quietly shared with certain academics and institutions, the reaction was not excitement. It was silence. A cold, hard, frozen silence. But the discovery was just the first piece. The location was the second. A bridge at the bottom of the sea. So why this exact spot? What's so special about this random patch of the Gulf of Aqaba? Yeah, about that. This is where the story gets even more incredible. The location of the dive was not random. It was
No, Vash, she was on another chat.
chosen because it's one of the most unique and bizarre underwater features on the entire planet. The Gulf of Aqaba, which separates the Sinai Peninsula from modern-day Saudi Arabia, is known for being extremely deep. We're talking about a massive underwater canyon that in most places plunges down to 5,000 or even 6,000 feet. That's over a mile straight down. It is a massive, impassable trench. Trying to cross it with an army of chariots or even on foot would be completely impossible. It is a sheer cliff of dark water, except for one very specific place. Right where the divers found the army, there is a massive flat land bridge that spans the entire Gulf. It's an underwater plateau stretching nearly 10 miles from the shore of a massive beach in Egypt called Nuweiba to the shore of Saudi Arabia. And get this, on either side of this bridge, the seabed plunges dramatically into those 5,000 foot deep abysses. But the bridge itself, it's relatively shallow. Now, shallow is a relative term. It's still about 900 feet deep at its deepest point, but compared to the mile-deep canyons on either side, it is a raised pathway. The sonar maps show it clearly, a distinct, massive underwater road 10 miles long and several miles wide. This underwater pathway is the only place in the entire 100-mile length of the Gulf of Aqaba that an ancient group of people could have even attempted to cross. What most people don't realize is that this geographical feature is a perfect one-to-one match for the ancient story. The biblical account describes the fleeing Israelites being trapped against the sea with mountains on either side and the Pharaoh's army closing in. The location at Nuweiba Beach is a perfect fit. It's a massive, sprawling beach, but it's completely walled in on either side by steep, impassable mountains.
Wow.
The only way in is from the west, and the only way out is forward into the sea, and right there at that exact spot is the underwater bridge. This geography is a massive wow factor because it's a detail that ancient writers could not possibly have known about. You can't see it from the surface. You can only find it with advanced sonar. Yet the story they told points directly to this one-of-a-kind location. The geography.
Diane, them sort of Christians that we're talking about, I don't think Jesus is going to let them into heaven if they're like that, because they're really, really nasty, and that shows their heart. Christians are just as bad as the Muslims with bagging other Christians,
Itself acts as a
and the Catholics are the best of all at it.
massive silent piece of evidence, suggesting that something historic and catastrophic happened right here. A corridor can also be a trap. The linear distribution of the artifacts, the 1.5-mile-long trail of wheels and bones, follows the path of this submerged bridge. It looks exactly like a group that was caught in the middle of the passage. This location also explains why the artifacts are still there. The 900-foot depth protected them from storms, ship anchors, and looters for millennia. And the unique currents created by the deep canyons on either side have trapped silt and sediment on the plateau. This sediment slowly buried the artifacts. And of course, the warm, clear water is perfect for coral growth. The coral has acted like a natural concrete. It grew on the hard, solid surfaces of the chariots, the wood, the bronze, the leather. Over thousands of years, the wood rotted away and the metal corroded, but the coral held its shape. The divers weren't just finding wheels, they were finding wheel-shaped coral. They are essentially fossils of chariots. Without this specific geography and biology, any remnants would have been scattered and dissolved into nothing centuries ago. This land bridge, this perfect crossing, also explains the scale of the find. An entire army with hundreds of chariots, horses, and soldiers forced into this narrow 10-mile bottleneck would be completely and totally vulnerable. When the disaster struck, there was no escape. They couldn't go left. They couldn't go right. They were trapped. This tragic bottleneck explains the massive concentration of artifacts. It's a silent underwater testament to a cataclysmic event. The fact that this terrain is so unique also helps debunk one of the main skeptical arguments. Critics often say, oh, it's just a random shipwreck. But here's the deal. This isn't a shipwreck. It's hundreds of military chariots, all from the same time period, all found in a linear path on the only plausible land crossing in the entire Gulf. That's not a coincidence. That's a scene. This unique path wasn't found by accident. One man claimed it was there all along. The vindication of a madman? This entire incredible story, the secret expedition, the sonar maps, the frozen Egyptologists, it all goes back to one man. A man who was not a professor, not a famous archaeologist, and not part of the academic elite. His name was Ron Wyatt, and for decades, the world thought he was a complete crank. So here's the deal with Ron Wyatt. He was a nurse anesthetist from Tennessee. He was also a passionate, deeply religious, self-taught biblical adventurer. Driven by an unshakable, literal belief that the stories in the Bible were physical, locatable history, he spent his life and his own money trying to find the physical proof. He was the definition of an amateur, an outsider, and that's putting it lightly. In the 1970s, Wyatt became obsessed with finding the true Red Sea crossing. He dismissed the traditional Reed Sea theories, small marshy lakes in northern Egypt. He followed the biblical clues, which he believed pointed to a massive body of water deep enough to drown an army. His search led him to the Gulf of Aqaba, and specifically to the massive mountain-locked beach of Nuweiba. He reasoned with simple logic that if this was the spot where the Israelites were trapped, then this must be the spot where the sea parted. And if that was true, then the remains of Pharaoh's army must be at the bottom of the Gulf, right on that underwater land bridge. So in 1978, armed with basic scuba gear, a small boat, and a lot of faith, he did something no one else had bothered to do. He dived down. What he claimed to find was exactly what the new $10 million expedition just verified. He reported seeing coral-encrusted chariot wheels. He even claimed to have recovered a hub from one. He took blurry, grainy underwater photos, which were easy to dismiss as
I definitely would take a souvenir from that place.
Interestingly shaped coral. But he didn't stop there. On later dives, he claimed to have found more. He reported finding human bones and horse bones all mixed in with the chariot parts. And he made his most explosive claim of all. He said he had found and filmed the legendary golden chariot wheel gleaming faintly beneath the coral. When Ron Wyatt presented his findings, the academic world didn't just ignore him. They ridiculed him. They tore him apart. He was labeled a fraud, a pseudoscience peddler, and a religious zealot who was just seeing what he wanted to see. Egyptologists and archaeologists were frozen in a state of complete and total dismissal. And get this, Wyatt's other claims made him an even bigger target.
I always capture every moment. One day, they'll thank me for the memories. Look at my dress.
The new Ego commercial mower. It's simple economics. Available now.
Bruce may be retired.
But my brain isn't.
That's why he switched to everyday comprehensive car insurance from Woolworths. He gets quality cover for his beloved Chariot and
10% off a Woolworths shop every month.
make your insurance.
He also claimed to have found Noah's Ark, the true location of Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia, right across from Nuweiba, the ashes of the red heifer, and even most fantastically, the Ark of the Covenant, hidden in a cave under Jerusalem.
I didn't know he found the ashes of the red heifer. I never knew that. I wonder what that's all about.
To the mainstream scientific community, this wasn't research. It was a fantasy-fueled treasure hunt. His Red Sea claims were thrown out along with everything else. For over 40 years, the site was dismissed as a myth, a conspiracy, and nothing but coral and wishful thinking. But here's the catch. Ron Wyatt passed away in 1999, his claims still almost universally mocked. But he left behind his research. He left his maps. He left the exact coordinates of the underwater land bridge and the debris field.
Soaking wet again.
The secret high-tech
wait, go away.
expedition in 2024, they weren't diving blind. They were following Ron Wyatt's map. And their $10 million sonar and high-definition cameras were verifying one by one the impossible claims that the nurse from Tennessee had been making all
No,
along.
you're wet.
The sonar confirmed the land bridge. The ROVs confirmed the wheels, the 4, 6, and 8-spoked wheels, just as he said. The divers confirmed the bones, and they even saw the glint of gold that Wyatt had reported. This is the core of the controversy. The experts who dismissed Wyatt for decades are now faced with high-tech data that proves he was, at the very least, right about the existence of a massive, ancient underwater debris field. The discovery is forcing a reevaluation of a man everyone had agreed was a fool. And it's forcing a terrifying reevaluation of how this impossible event could have ever happened. Because the how is where the theories get really wild. Chasing a stolen superweapon. This is the big question. If there's an army at the bottom of the sea, how did it get there? The ancient story says the sea parted, the Israelites
No,
walked
you're
across
all
some dry
wet, Molly.
ground,
Go
and the
away.
waters then collapsed on the pursuing Egyptian army. Mainstream science says that's impossible, but the evidence is there. So
Mom.
what really happened in the Gulf of Aqaba? This is where the theories get wild. Wild theory. Number 1, the volcano tsunami. This is a big one. What if the miracle was actually a perfectly timed natural disaster? Around 3,500 years ago, a massive volcano on the Greek island of Santorini, then called Thera, exploded. This was one of the largest volcanic eruptions in human history. It was a planet-altering event. This mega eruption, hundreds of miles
You are
away,
all
would have created
wet.
a massive
No.
tsunami that radiated across the Mediterranean. But what most people don't realize is that tsunamis have a famous, terrifying signature, the drawback. Before the giant wave hits, the sea recedes. The water is pulled back suddenly and dramatically, often for miles, exposing the seabed. To an ancient person who had never seen this, it would look like a miracle. The sea literally parting. So, here's the theory. The Israelites are trapped at Nuweiba. The Thera eruption causes a massive tidal drawback in the Red Sea. The water pulls back, exposing the 10-mile land bridge. It's a miracle. They run across. The Egyptian army, seeing their path, charges after them onto the exposed, muddy seabed. But here's the catch. The drawback is just the first part. The second part is the wave returning. Just as the Egyptian army, with its heavy, wheel-bogged chariots, reaches the middle of the Gulf, the tsunami hits. A wall of water, hundreds of feet high, roars back into the Gulf, annihilating the entire army in an instant. It's a scientific explanation that fits the story almost perfectly. The timing, the parting, and the collapse of the walls of water. Wild theory number 2, the Ark of the Covenant. This theory is even wilder, and it connects directly back to Ron Wyatt. Remember how Wyatt claimed to find both the chariot wheels and the Ark of the Covenant? What if those two discoveries are linked? What if the Israelites weren't just fleeing with their families? What if they had just stolen Egypt's most
Molly,
powerful
go
secret?
away, will you?
A lot of
Just go
non-mainstream
away.
theories propose that the Ark
You're
of
all
the
wet.
Covenant
I
wasn't
can't
just a
pick you
religious
up.
box. They say it was a piece of advanced, lost technology, a massive electrical capacitor, an energy source, or even a weapon. So here's the new story. The Israelites, led by Moses, who was raised in the Pharaoh's court and had access to its secrets, steal this powerful device. The Pharaoh is enraged. He's not just chasing to get his slaves back, he's chasing to get his super weapon back. The Israelites are trapped at the sea. The Egyptian army closes in, so Moses uses the device. The Ark of the Covenant unleashes an unknown force, maybe a localized gravity field, maybe a massive energy pulse that pushes the water apart, creating the dry path. The Israelites cross. The Egyptians, blinded by rage, charge in after them. Once they are all in the kill box, Moses, or the Ark itself, switches off the device. The walls of water held back by this unknown energy collapse. The army is destroyed. This theory is wild, but it answers a lot of questions. It explains the pillar of fire and cloud, the energy signature of the Ark. It explains why Pharaoh would risk his entire elite army. And it explains the supernatural.
Diane, she runs outside and gets soaking wet. I don't know how she does. Then she comes back in here and expects me to pick her up.
Power of the event. Wild theory number 3.
And she'll sit there like, and that's why I told her to shut up.
Lost acoustic technology. This one is straight out of science fiction. Some theorists propose that ancient civilizations, maybe even a pre-Egyptian one, understood the power of sound and frequency. What if the parting of the sea wasn't a miracle or a volcano, but a technological event? What if the staff of Moses was some kind of tonal resonator, a piece of lost tech that, when activated, created a specific sound frequency? A frequency so powerful it could literally push water, creating a parting through acoustic levitation. This sonic...
That's not unreasonable because they could float pyramid rocks on, I don't know how they done it, but they made them float in the air. I think it's something to do with pneumonics or something.
weapon would have held the water back only to be deactivated.
Oh, Molly,
once
go
the
away,
army
will you?
was
You're
inside.
soaking wet. I
Whether it was a
can't pick you
volcano,
up.
a super weapon, or lost
Now go
technology,
away.
all these theories point to the same conclusion. Something happened in that Gulf. Something powerful enough to wipe an army off the face of the earth, leaving its remains to be fossilized in coral, waiting to be found. But if the proof is there, why the silence? What are they hiding? This brings us to the core of the title, the very heart of this entire mystery. Why are Egyptologists and mainstream archaeologists frozen? It's not from awe, it's not from excitement. It's from a combination of pure academic disbelief, professional self-preservation, and perhaps a genuine, terrifying fear of what this discovery actually means for the world. So, here's the deal. For over 100 years, the consensus among almost all secular Egyptologists is that the Exodus, as described in the Bible, did not happen. Period. At least not on the impossible scale the story claims. They teach this in every university, from Cairo to Harvard. It's written in every textbook. It is the dogma. They argue very logically that there is zero archaeological evidence in the Sinai Desert for 2 million people, a population the size of a modern city wandering for 40 years. They demand, where are the campsites? Where are the mass graves? Where is the pottery? They argue correctly that there is no mention in any Egyptian hieroglyph, no record on any papyrus of their entire army, their most valuable military asset, their charioteers being destroyed in a single catastrophic day. The entire foundation of modern Egyptology, its timelines, its king lists, its understanding of the 18th dynasty's power, its history, it's all built on a framework that does not include this event. It's a framework that cannot include this event. To them, it's a myth. A powerful story of cultural foundation, but a myth nonetheless. Now suddenly, a team of divers following the map of a man, Ron Wyatt, who everyone in...
Diane, I've actually got dog treats for her. I'll give her some. When she's dry, I'll let her on the bed. But I'm not putting her up here now. She's a, what do you call Pomeranian with long hair?
The serious academic world dismissed as a crank, a charlatan, a religious dreamer, they find a massive underwater debris field. A field that doesn't just hint at the story, it matches it perfectly. We're not talking about one or two broken pots. We're talking about hundreds of chariots. We're talking about wheels, axles, and cabinets scattered across the seafloor. And not just any chariots. The specific 6-spoke and 8-spoke designs used only by the Egyptian army of the 18th dynasty. The exact right time period. At the exact right location, a massive natural land bridge cutting across the deep Gulf, with the exact kind of geography the story implies. If this site is real, then the experts were wrong, and that's putting it lightly. This discovery doesn't just add a new chapter to history, it tears out all the old ones. It would mean that the ancient texts were not just stories, but accurate, literal, historical accounts. A tenured professor who has built their entire 30-year career, their entire reputation on the Exodus and myth theory cannot suddenly turn around and say, oops, guess that nurse from Tennessee was right all along. Their career would be over. Their life's work would be meaningless. Every book they published would be fiction. Every student they mentored would have been taught a lie. So they are frozen. They are silent. The safest thing to do is to ignore it, to attack the source, to call it unverified, pseudoscience, or misinterpreted. They will argue it's just a shipwreck graveyard from many different eras, even though the evidence points to a single massive chaotic event. They will say the coral-encrusted wheels are just coral formations or modern debris, even when the shapes are unmistakable. They will demand impossible standards of proof for this one site while accepting far less for their own pet theories. They are gatekeepers, and this discovery is a battering ram at their gates. They will never, ever give an inch, because giving an inch means that their entire ivory tower comes crumbling down. But the wild theory here is that it goes deeper. What if it goes deeper than just a few dozen academic careers? What if this is a global conspiracy? Think about it. Really, think. If this site is proven beyond any doubt to be the remains of the Pharaoh's army, it would be seen as physical, tangible, scientific proof of one of the foundational miracles of the Old Testament. In a world full of religious and political tension, what would that do? It would elevate one set of religious beliefs backed by physical proof above all others. It would validate the claims of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam in one fell swoop. That's not just academically disruptive, that's geopolitically disruptive. It's an earthquake. What about other world religions? What about purely secular atheistic governments who have built their entire state on the idea that religion is a fantasy? Do you think those powers want billions of people to suddenly have physical proof of God's direct intervention in history? It's a geopolitical time bomb. It threatens the balance of global power. And what do powerful people do when they are threatened by an inconvenient truth? They don't debate it. They bury it. They make the problem disappear. This is where the story gets its most urgent. This is where it gets chilling. The evidence is vanishing. Let's talk about that golden chariot wheel that Ron Wyatt claimed he found. He said it was a 4-spoke wheel, the kind used only by the highest royalty, maybe the pharaoh himself. He claimed he brought it to the surface, documented it, and that its existence was reported to the Egyptian authorities, thinking they would be ecstatic. And then, poof, it vanished. There are no official photos. There is no museum record, no official statement. The one piece of smoking gun proof that could have verified the entire story is gone.
Yeah, because in a Muslim country, they shush it up.
Skeptics, the same frozen experts, laugh and say, see, he made it all up. It never existed. But what if he didn't? What if it was confiscated? What if it was taken and buried in a deep, dark vault, a place like the warehouse at the end of Indiana Jones? A secret so explosive it can never be allowed to see the light of day? It gets worse, much worse. The new 2024 expedition, comparing their new high-tech, high-resolution sonar maps to Wyatt's original maps and photos from the 70s and 80s, has reported something deeply disturbing. Large sections of the debris field, they seem to have been altered, cleared. Areas that Wyatt claimed were dense with artifacts, places he labeled chariot parts and skeletal remains, are now suspiciously barren. Is this just natural erosion? Is it just the currents of the Red Sea, which have been flowing for 3,500 years? Or is it a cleanup operation? The new team has reported seeing drag marks on the seafloor, marks that look like massive objects were hooked and pulled away. This isn't nature. This is surgical. Is it possible that in the 40 years since Wyatt first found it, someone has been slowly, quietly, and systematically removing the evidence, erasing the history from the bottom of the sea? We are in a race against time. The site is incredibly fragile. The coral fossils, the human and horse remains encased in mineral deposits, are being eroded by currents. But the human element, that is the real threat. The experts are frozen because they are standing on the edge of a cliff. Behind them is their entire life's work, their reputation, their comfortable, established world. In front of them is a dark, deep gulf full of impossible evidence, evidence that threatens to pull them and all of established history under. And while they stand there, silent and paralyzed, the shadows are moving. The evidence is disappearing. The truth isn't just being ignored.
That was very interesting.
Raghav wants to be a business leader, but he knows the best experience.
Usually interesting space rock. The evidence is overwhelming. Atlas is artificial. It's maneuvering deliberately. It's trying to communicate. And it's approaching Earth on a timeline measured in weeks. China is warning the world to prepare. NASA is hoping we stay ignorant. And what happens next will either vindicate one of these approaches or condemn it. What do you think? Is China right to warn us? Or is NASA protecting us from premature panic? Should we prepare for contact? or trust that our governments have everything
That's scary, Di.
under control? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And make sure you're subscribed, because when Atlas makes its move, you'll want to know immediately. The countdown to closest approach continues. The truth about Atlas becomes clearer every day. And soon, whether NASA likes it or not, everyone will know what's really coming. China just released data that NASA has been hiding for months. And what it reveals about 3I/ATLAS will change everything you thought you knew about this mysterious object. While NASA keeps telling us Atlas is just an unusual interstellar comet passing through, China's National Space Administration just dropped a bombshell. Detailed tracking data showing ATLAS doing things that comets simply cannot do. Propulsion burns, controlled navigation, systematic course corrections, and electromagnetic transmissions with structure far too complex to be natural. This isn't theory or speculation. This is hard evidence from advanced space tracking networks, evidence that directly contradicts everything NASA has been saying publicly about ATLAS. The Chinese data shows Atlas slowing down and speeding up on command. It shows lateral movements that require engines, not just gravitational drift. It shows the object making 17 separate course corrections over 2 weeks, each one precisely timed and executed. And most shocking of all, it shows Atlas deliberately altering its trajectory to bring itself closer to Earth than its original path. NASA has known about these capabilities for months. They've tracked the same maneuvers. Their telescopes have captured the same evidence. But instead of sharing this information with the public, they've stayed silent, publishing reassuring statements about a natural visitor, while their classified data tells a very different story. Before we break down the shocking capabilities China just exposed and why NASA has been hiding them, hit that like button and subscribe, because what you're about to learn about Atlas will completely shatter the official narrative. China's release of this data wasn't just scientific transparency. It was a direct challenge to NASA's cover-up. And the evidence they've provided proves that Atlas is far more than just a space rock. It's something with technology, intelligence, and a specific destination in mind, Earth. China's space tracking network has been monitoring Atlas just as closely as NASA, maybe even more closely. And what their telescopes captured over the past weeks reveals capabilities that transform ATLAS from an astronomical curiosity into something far more significant. The Chinese observations show Atlas performing velocity changes that natural objects cannot execute. In one documented sequence, Atlas decelerated by 5,000 miles per hour over a 12-hour period. 3 days later, it accelerated back to its original velocity. That's not gravitational influence or solar wind effects. That's powered flight. An orbital mechanics specialist who reviewed the Chinese data explained the significance. When you see velocity changes like this, with these specific acceleration profiles, you're looking at thrust, engines firing, controlled propulsion. Natural space objects don't slow down and speed up on command. This is technology, not geology. The Chinese tracking stations also captured Atlas making lateral course corrections, sideways movements that adjust its trajectory without changing overall velocity. These maneuvers require thrust vectoring, the ability to direct engine power in specific directions. It's exactly what spacecraft do when making precise navigational adjustments. Over a 2-week observation period, China documented Atlas making 17 distinct course corrections, each one precisely timed and executed to alter the object's path through space. The pattern suggests active navigation toward a specific destination rather than passive drift through the solar system. But the propulsion evidence is just the beginning. China's radio telescope arrays captured detailed recordings of electromagnetic transmissions from ATLAS that reveal complexity far beyond anything NASA has publicly acknowledged. The signals aren't random noise or simple pulses. They're structured communications using multiple frequency bands, showing characteristics of advanced data transmission, modulation patterns, error correction codes, and what appears to be packet-based information transfer similar to how our own digital communications work. One particularly striking finding: The Chinese data shows ATLAS's transmissions adapting based on environmental conditions. When solar radiation increases, the broadcast
made everything a lot easier to expand, to add a technician, to add a team member in the office. It gives you that ability.
Perspective, the transmission power increases to maintain signal strength. That's not automated response, that's intelligent adaptation. Beyond tracking and signals data, China released high-resolution imagery of Atlas that reveals surface features unlike anything seen on natural space objects. The Chinese space-based telescopes captured Atlas from multiple angles as it rotated, creating detailed three-dimensional maps of its structure. What those maps show has sparked intense debate in the astronomical community. Atlas's surface displays geometric patterns, areas with regular spacing, precise angles, and symmetrical arrangements that look extremely unlikely to form through natural processes. One region shows what appears to be a grid of rectangular structures, each approximately 50 meters across, arranged in perfect rows. A planetary geologist who analyzed the imagery described the anomaly. Natural geological processes create irregular
Did this guy here die?
random crater impacts, uneven weathering, chaotic fracturing. What we're seeing on ATLAS are ordered patterns, regularity, precision. Those characteristics suggest artificial construction rather than natural formation. Another striking feature captured in the Chinese images, ATLAS appears to have distinct sections with different surface properties. Some areas are highly reflective, almost mirror-like. Other regions are matte and dark. The boundaries between these sections are sharp and linear, not the gradual transitions you'd expect from natural material variations. Most intriguing are the thermal observations. Chinese infrared telescopes detected heat sources on ATLAS's surface that don't correlate with solar heating patterns. Some areas are warmer than they should be based on sun exposure, suggesting internal heat generation. That implies active power systems operating inside the object. The thermal signatures also show regular cycling, periods of increased heat followed by cooling, then heating again in predictable patterns. One area pulses with a heat signature that cycles every 4.7 hours with clock-like precision. Natural thermal processes don't maintain that kind of regularity. China's spectroscopic analysis adds another layer of mystery. The composition readings show materials that are extremely rare in natural space objects. Specific alloy combinations that require precise temperature control and manufacturing processes to create. Elements in concentrations that don't match any known asteroid or comet profiles. The data reveals significant quantities of titanium, vanadium, and rare earth elements in configurations that suggest they were deliberately combined rather than naturally formed. These are the kinds of material signatures you'd expect from advanced manufacturing, not from a primordial chunk of ice and rock. Perhaps the most damning evidence in China's release concerns Atlas's trajectory, the path it's taking through our solar system. And this is where things get truly unsettling. NASA's official trajectory data shows Atlas following a hyperbolic orbit, coming in from interstellar space, swinging past the sun, and heading back out. A simple one-time visit from a traveler passing through. But China's tracking data tells a completely different story. The Chinese observations show Atlas making deliberate course adjustments that have systematically altered its path. These aren't minor gravitational perturbations, these are substantial trajectory modifications that have changed where Atlas is heading. An aerospace analyst examining the Chinese trajectory calculations explained the implications. Based on Atlas's original approach vector, it should have passed through the inner solar system and departed. But the course corrections documented in China's data have bent that trajectory significantly. Atlas is no longer on an escape path, it's maneuvering into a trajectory that keeps it in the inner solar system. The data shows Atlas making specific adjustments at key points, burning engines when gravitational assists from planets would maximize the efficiency of each maneuver. This is exactly what spacecraft mission planners do when designing fuel-efficient trajectories. It's sophisticated orbital mechanics being executed in real time. Most concerning, The modified trajectory brings ATLAS much closer to Earth than its original path would have. China's calculations project Atlas passing within 3 million miles of our planet, less than 13 times the distance to the moon. From an astronomical perspective, that's uncomfortably close. But here's what really has analysts worried. Atlas's current trajectory has it approaching Earth from a specific angle that would make it extremely difficult to observe from ground-based telescopes during the closest approach. The geometry positions Atlas in a location where it would be visible primarily from space-based assets and a narrow band of Earth's surface. A military space analyst described this positioning as suspicious. If you wanted to approach Earth while minimizing observation opportunities, while reducing the number of tracking stations that could monitor you, you'd choose almost exactly this trajectory. It's either an incredible coincidence or it's deliberate planning by whatever controls ATLAS. The Chinese data also shows Atlas performing what's called orbital reconnaissance, flying past targets at distances and angles optimal for detailed observation. Atlas made the
Last, I watched that one you posted on Misfits of the mermaid. That was fascinating. Can you do that on YouTube? Is that up on any YouTube channel?
kinds of passes near Mars, gathering data about the planet's composition, atmosphere, and surface features. The same pattern appears to be setting up for Earth. China's trajectory projections show multiple possible futures for ATLAS after its Earth approach. Some paths show it continuing deeper into the solar system. Others show it using Earth's gravity to modify course towards specific destinations.
Here's another one, Vast, with the flat Earth theory. How come there's no footage of what's over the edge of the Earth? We can go to the moon, as you said, but we can't go up to the edge of the Earth and film the big drop because Earth's not flat.
Destinations, the asteroid belt, Jupiter's
Same
moons,
principle.
or even back toward Mars. But several of China's projections show something that NASA has never publicly discussed: the possibility of ATLAS inserting itself into orbit around Earth. The calculations show it's entirely possible given ATLAS's demonstrated propulsion capabilities and current trajectory. Atlas could, if it chose to, park itself in Earth orbit and stay there indefinitely. China's radio telescope data reveals something NASA has barely acknowledged. ATLAS isn't just broadcasting randomly into space, it's attempting to communicate. And the sophistication of those attempts suggests intelligence that understands communication theory and information encoding. The Chinese data shows Atlas's transmissions evolving over time. Early broadcasts were simple mathematical sequences, prime numbers, geometric ratios, basic constants that any technological civilization would recognize. But as weeks passed, the transmissions became more complex. Recent signals captured by China's arrays include what appears to be encoded imagery, data patterns that, when processed through various decoding algorithms, might represent visual information. Some researchers believe these could be star charts showing ATLAS's point of origin. Others think they might be diagrams explaining ATLAS's purpose or capabilities. A communications engineer analyzing the Chinese data described the sophistication. These transmissions use layered encoding, multiple types of information packed into the same signal. There are clearly identifiable header sequences that mark the beginning of data packets. There are error correction codes that would allow reconstruction of information even if parts of the signal were lost. This is professional-grade communication engineering. What makes this particularly intriguing is that ATLAS's signals show adaptation. When China's radio telescopes transmitted experimental responses toward ATLAS, the object's subsequent broadcasts incorporated elements from those transmissions. Atlas is listening, processing what it receives, and adjusting its messages accordingly. This represents interactive communication, not just blind broadcasting. Atlas appears to be trying to establish a dialogue, testing different approaches, modifying its strategy based on whether it receives responses. That's behavior consistent with intelligence actively seeking contact. The Chinese data also reveals that But Atlas's transmissions aren't omnidirectional, they're beamed. Focused broadcasts aimed at specific targets. Some transmissions are directed toward Earth. Others aim toward locations in deep space, possibly communicating with origin points or other objects we haven't detected yet. Most intriguingly, China captured Atlas, sending focused transmissions toward specific Earth locations, not just toward the planet generally, but toward particular coordinates on the surface. These targeted beams were aimed at major population centers, significant geographical features, and, interestingly, toward the locations of large radio telescope arrays. It's as if Atlas knows where our communication facilities are located and is specifically trying to get their attention, either through remarkable detection of our electromagnetic emissions or through prior mapping of Earth's infrastructure. ATLAS has identified where humans might be listening and is directing messages to those locations. China's release of this data puts NASA in an impossible position, and their continued silence speaks volumes about what they know but aren't saying. When another major space agency publicly contradicts your official narrative with hard evidence, standard protocol is to respond. You either refute the claims with your own data, acknowledge the discrepancies and explain them, or engage in diplomatic channels to reconcile the differences. NASA has done none of these things. No press conference addressing China's findings, no technical paper challenging their methodology, no statement explaining why Chinese observations would differ so dramatically from American data. Just silence. A former NASA public affairs specialist explained what this silence likely means. NASA doesn't deny China's findings because they can't. Their own classified tracking data probably shows the same things China just released. The silence isn't confusion. It's calculated strategy to avoid confirming information they're not ready to share publicly. But the silence creates its own problems. Every day NASA says nothing, more people see China's evidence and start questioning why America's space agency won't respond. The void of information gets filled with speculation, conspiracy theories, and erosion of public trust in NASA's credibility.
Hey, Lobo, just thinking of you, mate.
NASA's silence is coordinated with other Western space agencies to present a unified front of no comment, rather than validate China's claims. But that strategy is failing as more nations review China's data and find it compelling. Russia quickly released a statement agreeing with China's assessment. India's space program published observations that align with the Chinese findings. Even some European scientists have broken ranks to say China's data matches what they've privately observed but weren't authorized to discuss publicly. NASA might also be silent because acknowledging China's evidence would require explaining why they've been downplaying these capabilities for months. Admitting that Atlas has propulsion, maneuvering ability, and communication systems would validate everyone who questioned NASA's just a comet narrative. It would make NASA look either incompetent for not detecting these features or deceptive for hiding them. There's also the national security dimension. If Atlas represents advanced technology that could potentially be studied, understood, or even retrieved, the technology has enormous strategic value. The nation that makes first contact, establishes communication, or gains access to ATLAS's systems would possess a massive technological advantage. From this perspective, NASA's silence might be part of a strategy to avoid revealing the full extent of American intelligence about Atlas. By saying nothing, they don't confirm what they know, don't acknowledge capabilities that China revealed, and maintain flexibility for classified response
Robo, what are you going on about we destroyed planets? I don't understand what your point is.
options. But perhaps the most concerning explanation for NASA's silence, they're just as confused as everyone else. Maybe NASA doesn't have good answers for what China revealed. Maybe their own analysis is incomplete or contradictory. Maybe they're staying quiet because they genuinely don't know what Atlas...
Exactly, Vars. I'm not sure if this thing's true or not. There's so much out there. I just don't know. Some people give away good evidence, but like you said, how do we know it's true?
is or what it's doing, and admitting that uncertainty would be worse than saying nothing.
If it's true this thing's changed direction on purpose, That's intelligent design.
China's release of ATLAS data has triggered responses from nations and space agencies worldwide, and the picture emerging suggests a planet deeply divided about how to handle this situation. Multiple countries have upgraded their space surveillance capabilities specifically to track Atlas independently. India announced accelerated deployment of new tracking stations. Australia is coordinating with Asian partners to create a Southern Hemisphere observation network. Even smaller nations are dedicating resources to ATLAS monitoring, unwilling to rely solely on NASA or Chinese data. The European Space Agency held emergency consultations with member nations about coordinating a unified European response. The discussions reportedly focused on whether to align with NASA's cautious approach or acknowledge the validity of China's more alarming findings. The fact that they're even debating this shows how uncertain the situation has become. International scientific organizations are also split. Some astronomy groups have called for complete transparency about all Atlas observations, arguing the public deserves full disclosure about what might be first contact with alien intelligence. Others support NASA's cautious approach, warning that premature or incomplete.
I don't know if you know this, Lobo, but there's some artifacts on Mars, like the giant face, the pyramids that are there.
Complete information could cause unnecessary panic.
You see their atmosphere is blue, it's not red.
Religious institutions worldwide are beginning to weigh in. The Vatican released a statement acknowledging that discovery of intelligent extraterrestrial life would have profound theological implications, but wouldn't contradict Catholic doctrine.
Ha!
Islamic scholars are debating
Catholic
whether
doctrine.
alien intelligence possesses souls. Buddhist leaders have noted that their cosmology already accommodates intelligent beings from other realms. The United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs convened discussions about whether existing space treaties cover scenarios like.
Okay, he's told us the evidence. I'll try and find something else. Here we go. This looks good.
Folks, there is a hidden history that has been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and that's why we are on the trail of the Nephilim. Today, I'll be talking about a conversation that I had with two Navajo elders. I'll be getting into that. I think you'll find it fascinating. Why? Because they all know about the giants. And in that interview, we talked about the giants that once roamed on what is now the Navajo Reservation. We'll get into that and so much more after a word from our sponsor. Folks, as we wrap up 2025, it's a good time to slow down and reflect on the year. If there's one thing we've all learned, it's that uncertainty isn't temporary. It's the world we live in now. Waiting for things to go back to normal isn't a plan, it's a gamble. For over a decade, my friends at Noble Gold Investments have helped Americans protect themselves and the people they love by diversifying their wealth with gold and silver. Look, nobody knows what 2026 will bring, but one thing is for sure. In an uncertain world, real wealth isn't digital. It's physical, it's lasting, and it's yours. So when you're sitting around the table this holiday season, surrounded by family, remember, the best gift you can give isn't under the tree. It's peace of mind. And that's what Noble Gold delivers. Peace of mind, 1 ounce at a time. Before the year ends, take one smart step toward a safer future. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com. Get your free wealth protection kit today. Once again, noblegoldinvestments.com. As we wrap up 2025, we know that uncertainty isn't temporary. It's the world we live in now. Waiting for things to go back to normal isn't a plan. It is a gamble. Folks, noblegoldinvestments.com, noblegoldinvestments.com. Folks, thanks so much for watching here on YouTube. We had 2.8 million views last year, or I should say 2021. It's still 2021. I want to thank you all for coming.
Oh, well done, Di. You're right. Perfect. Now CTV hasn't put anything decent up for a couple of weeks. That's why I haven't played them. There it is. No, where is it? Hang on.
through at it. I'm surprised people haven't started seeing refrigerators being projectiled out of whatever type of device. But there's a little funny humor there for the start off here with the program. But let's just get into it.
Thanks, Di. Thanks for this link.
On the channel, we talked about UAPs, UFOs. We talked about orbs during that particular time. I think New Jersey was going through the chaos and the pandemonium in the streets when you had the beautiful orb, nuclear, whatever it was going on, and they did some type of experiment, whatever it is. They're still talking about that to this day. So when you look at this interstellar object, as far as July the 1st this year, that's when they supposedly decided to say that they discovered it by a astro-terrestrial impact last alert system, which is called Atlas. But the ironic thing is, David, there's been some things online, some information about it, that this Atlas
they're actually live, guys. I've never seen the AC TV go live.
This location where Atlas resides from, where it comes from, supposedly the 3i Atlas in the same direction 1977 said that there was a signal saying whoa or wow or something to that level. Have you heard anything about that, David? They're communicating with this thing or something to that level, wherever this gate was coming, where this 3i Atlas came from. They're talking about that there was a signal resonating with the translation of the English language. What's your take on that, David? Because it's a little crazy.
Yeah, and there have been credible scientists, if the scientists are credible at all. Someone in the chat said, I wouldn't believe anything NASA says. Well, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you on that. The reason why NASA
Vast must be on their chat as well.
lies is because they are liars. That's why they lie. And there has been a lot of confirmed reports that there are signals coming from this thing. And it's also reported that there are like 9 objects following behind this. Now, I read one article by a scientist that said, because this is emitting a radio signal, that means it's a natural comet. And I just scratch my head and I think, well, if it's emitting a radio signal, maybe that means there might be a radio there and something man-made emitting the signal. Now, this reminds me of something else that's just absolutely phenomenal that was revealed. This is a book called Invisible Residence by Ivan T. Sanderson. And he reports here.
Yeah, the 3D glasses, sunglasses, I don't think they're going to take off.
On an incident that took place with the United States Navy. And he said that what startled the men aboard the research ship was the reception of the signal, and then a repeat of the signal followed by a strange code, which the computers are still trying to break. What happened, according to a later naval report, was that the signals in the experiment were picked up and mimicked by something unknown. And then this something began transmitting its own signals on the same wavelengths used by the Navy scientists. Something strange was definitely down there. The Navy report stated, alert, the ONR scientists had even tracked the source of the alien signal and discovered that it appeared to emanate from one of the deepest areas of the Atlantic, a spot with depths measured at 29,000 feet. So our own Navy has confirmed radio signals from the very depths of the ocean that they can't explain. And now we have this radio signal coming from 3i Atlas, and they say, oh, well, this proves it's a comet. I just can't buy that, Brian. Just don't buy it.
Yeah, David, there's just so much information that doesn't even make sense to me when you really ponder on it and really try to calculate this thing down and really get a hone in on the information, because we're on the Earth.
Mate, they're shocking glasses. Wow. Hasn't he got any style at all?
Earth. We're on the face of the Earth. We don't have the technology, nor do me and Kid David claim that we have a jet rocket pack that we can go up into the atmosphere and take a little gander. Okay? So, yeah, David. It's for it to be emitting a signal. It reminds me of the Oumuamua that they keep talking about. It reminds me of the Skinwalker Ranch with the cylinder-shaped object that put impressions on the ground. It reminds me of the flying roll in the biblical account with, I think it was in Zechariah, if I'm not mistaken. And then you also have the document with the I almost said through, with the 3-letter agency. And they're talking about the title of that was in 1947, Flying Roll. It's just interesting that you have these cylinder-shaped objects. It kind of goes back to when you think about the Vimanas, the Orphanas, the Ephas, and then you look at the Ezekiel, which is a fiery chariot, and the wheels and wheels. But this cigar-shaped, like, craft or comets, meteorites, whatever you want to call it, it's just interesting, David. This stuff all is coming out of Chile, is when they originally found it. I think it was called Hutro. I think that's how you pronounce it. Hurtado. I went to check it out, make sure I read it right. Hurtado, Chile. But they found this back in July of 2025. They've been, keeping tabs on it, so to speak. And then this is the third confirmation of an interstellar object, supposedly in the modern day time. So we have the Oumuamua in 2017, and there was one more. I think it was called sort of the B, if I'm not mistaken. It's a hard one to pronounce, but let me make sure I'm reading this correctly here. I think they called it. Let's see. I think it was 2-eye Borisov. I think that's what they call it. And then we have now the 3-eye Atlas. So if you look at all this together, supposedly the Atlas is hovering the survey that detected it. So it's kind of like all these mechanical systems are supposedly keeping tabs on it to a certain degree. It's pretty crazy stuff there, brother David.
Yeah, it is for a fact. And when we think in terms of this,
Hey, Phil, good to see you, mate.
Which would lead us to the understanding that the heavenly luminaries are
Phil, did you do your wedding yet?
underneath the firmament, then on the firmament. And this in scripture would be a region that they would refer to as outer darkness. And for this to happen, God is the controller. He is the gatekeeper, if you will. And the heavenly firmament is basically the buffer zone between our world and the third heaven, the things that lie beyond. So for this thing to come in, God has had to allow a gate to be opened for this to come through. And, we've up here in not too many more years, there is Wormwood, which I did a show with Dan Bedandi where we talked about, put forth the probability that this is actually an entity. And there in the Cauldron Bible, which is a mixture of Egyptian and Druidic texts, and it talks about the return of the destroyer. And the destroyer, and it literally says that it's going to come through the gate. And we also know that in the Bible, the destroyer in Isaiah chapter 10, that this is the Assyrian. So I have to say that I think we have to have a heavy probability that this could be an entity we're looking at. And people say, well, an entity couldn't be that big. Well, we have many texts that tell us, and that there were entities big as mountains in the book of Enoch and other ancient texts, that these were huge, they weren't small, that there were entities that were very, very large. In the book of Revelation, it talks about stars that are falling to the earth the size of a mountain. So we have to have all hands on deck here. We have to take this seriously, that what we're seeing here is not business as usual, but we need to watch and pray like the Bible tells us.
I agree with that, David. And just to kind of throw this out here real quick, biblical cosmology, heliocentric model, but what David just said makes things kind of take it to another level. And there's been a lot of speculation about this comet 3-eye Atlas, David, that has billions, I think, or it was either billions or millions of years old water encapsulating around 3-eye Atlas. So, hypothetical here, let's just say you're coming from the waters above, and some other plane of existence there was all kinds of water, right? You had to have such force. Maybe there's something to it, David. Maybe this is something to do with ancient Atlantis, Lemuria, something coming down our road, literally, and we just don't really see it yet. And I have to agree, it could be an entity. It could be a little bit of both. It could be physical.
Yeah.
It could be it could be biological. It could be an android type of mechanism with artificial intelligence, and that might be why it's acting the way it's doing. Maybe that is.
Yeah.
Maybe it is.
Yeah, and in the Word of God, it tells us that there not only were waters above the firmament in the book of Genesis, but in the book of Psalms, we read that they are still there. So if this thing did come from beyond the firmament, like they say, it would make sense if it did have some water on it. Maybe not well, and it might even be some old water, but that is certainly something to think about. And a lot of people, and of course, biblical cosmology isn't the main thrust of our broadcast this evening, but when we think about, you've got so many believers that
Did it go down well, Phil?
are Christians that realize how much that the public school system and our so-called educational system has lied about evolution.
Look, Lobo, they wouldn't be 3D glasses. They'd be a bad attempt at fashion. That'd do his eyes in wearing 3D glasses all the time.
And they'll say, oh, yeah, they've lied about evolution. And, is it wise for us to think that that's the only thing they're lying about? And there's just plenty of reason to investigate into this area of biblical cosmology that we have indeed been told a lot of lies.
Cool, Phil. Good on you, mate.
Well-intentioned lies to us. So we need to watch and pray and be very discerning.
I agree 1,000% on that, Brother David. So let's get into some topic matter here about what's really going on, this new imagery out of Thailand. Let's just check it out real quick. So in Thailand, there's this imagery, David, and this imagery is interesting to say the least. According to the account, they're believing that there may be two tails present. As far as it's been showing different signs of tails, turning it off, that kind of thing. And all of a sudden, simply due to other components, the tail being too faint to appear as a single cohesive tail. So either way you look at it, 3 Atlas continues to be on a short journey through the so-called solar system. And as far as really what's going on, the secrets behind it are daunting to the human perception, David. I mean, we're looking at something here that's above our pay grade. And like you said, only God knows what this really is and, knows exactly to the T what it really is representing and what it's really going to do to the earth. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal. According to it, also with the tail, it is pointing directly toward the sun while 2 massive tails trail behind it. It's like something is bending the rules of physics right in front of our eyes. And why is it happening? Is it some kind of trick perspective of something, or is it something far stranger? David, have we got something very stranger going on here? Is this fallen angel technology? They keep on hearing about the Anunnaki coming back, and you keep a lot of hearing with the UFO phenomenon. They've been tuning this up since 2023, really, for the masses. And it's pretty interesting to say here we are in 2025, and this is going down with this interstellar visitor, so to speak. So it's pretty interesting, my friend. It's pretty interesting indeed. And that screen shows some imagery. But let's watch a video, David, if you want to comment on this slide here, if you want to talk about the image, talk about the different tails. But if you don't have anything to comment on, I have a video. And speaking of astronomer and not the astronomer, but the Professor Avi Loeb, he's talking about something here about these mysterious space invasion headed toward Earth. Sarcasm included there. But you want to watch that, Brother David? Would you like to see that?
Let's watch it. Right.
10-4.
Yeah, Lobo, that's nothing to do with the chat. Even if Fast felt like that, he wouldn't say that.
Been calling on NASA to release the image. The government is back open. No image. What do you make of this?
Well, thanks for having me. I was told by 2 sources that, in fact, NASA plans to release those images in a few days, in the middle of next week. So let's just keep our fingers crossed, because these should be the highest.
This is the reason I doubt Atlas, because he's just everywhere putting it out there. So that's one of the reasons I don't trust if Atlas is true. This guy isn't helping the cause, he's ruining it.
Resolution images, and also they should be from the side of those outflows. That will give us much more information because Trier Atlas passed within 29 million kilometers from Mars when the images were taken back on October 2nd to 3rd. And that offered an unusual opportunity to get a high resolution view of it. The case that was made is that they required some.
Lobo, Diane was saying she gets a hard time in some chats. And that's why Varsity did. That there's crazy viewers out there. Whoever's bagging her on the chats, they're the crazy viewers. That's how that went down.
Processing these images, and therefore they could not have been made public during the government shutdown. I prefer to believe that storyline than any conspiracy theories at this time.
Okay, so
David, I'll be low there.
So been calling on NASA to release the image. The government is back open. No image. What do you make of this?
Good evening, everybody.
Well, thanks for having me. I was told by two sources that in fact NASA plans to release those images in a few days in the middle of next week. So let's just keep our fingers crossed because these should be the.
Had a little technical difficulty there, folks.
I heard that. I heard that.
We can't. We're a little rusty here on Sunday Night Live. But David, what did you think? Sorry about that, folks. Say that happens when we're live here. So even if you got professional, if you're seasoned as we are, we still make mistakes. We're only human. We're not AI or robotic. So I'll be low, David. What do you think about this physicist and what he has to say here? Do you think NASA is going to reveal these photos that they are going to present to the public? Because, sir, I think this video is fairly new, so we only got a few days to the countdown to the imagery to make it happen. So what do you say to that, Brother David? Pretty interesting times indeed. Hopefully they'll come through for us with this high resolution, high intensity. You know, we'll be getting 4K, 8K, 200K. What are we going to get, David, with these lovely magnifications of these photos, David?
Well, I would just have to say that Mr. Loeb has been completely down the rabbit hole on the conspiratorial aspect of this, believing that it is indeed an alien craft. And I'll have to say, for a lot of reasons that we talked to on this previous broadcast, that I don't really put a whole lot of trust and confidence in Mr. Loeb either. And when you look at this whole thing and you look at the radio signals, and well, it comes into our solar system, it's got a tail like a comet, then it doesn't have a tail. Now there's 9 things behind it. Now it's emitting radio signals, it's slowing up, it's speeding, slowing down, and speeding up. These are things that no comet has ever been known to do. And you just gotta have that feeling that there's things they're not telling us. And the things they do tell us, they can be just as bad as factual as the Apollo missions. So, you know, we just really got to be discerning. So I'm not holding my breath on images from NASA that's going to show us great truth. I think we're going to have images from NASA that are going to show us what they want us to believe.
So, David, let's just think about this for a minute. You mentioned entity earlier, and it's a question time for David Carrico during the Sunday Night Live. So, you mentioned entities earlier. Could this be an entity? Could it be both? Could it be human interaction? Could it be something to that level? So I have a question. I've never asked you this on FOJC. The word interdimensional keeps getting thrown around. It gets thrown around in all kinds of different directions. It really is. It's getting thrown around a lot here lately. So one would have to ponder, entities are supposedly, or, you know, if you think about it on a level of humanity, we would consider them interdimensional, you know, spiritual application where they can jump in and out of time or jump in and out of portals, gates, whatever. So do you think mankind has gotten to a level, because I know we're going to be talking about it here a little bit more about future technology and everything, and we have different offset factions that could be basically pulling away from a breakaway civilization, so to speak, and making things happen.
Driving on toll roads should be simple, and yet missed payments can turn into extra fees and stress.
Breakaway civilizations. So just to summarize the whole question, do you think that humans have gotten to a point to interdimensionally turn themselves into something like the spirits, like the Gilberine, the giants, but interdimensionally dematerialized? And this is what we're looking at here. We're looking at a huge game in breakaway civilizations with high technology, and we're looking for codes to crack open this technology because they have the accessibility to shut off our nuclear facilities, shut off our internet, shut off any type of thing that they wish and will.
But you got to admit that was funny. That's the French in you. That was funny, I thought. Sorry, guys.
So I wonder, David, just a big question. What do you think about the concept of humans being interdimensional and turning themselves that way and being able to still stay intact without losing their soul, so to speak, and dying, and still be able to manifest, so to speak?
Well, I don't believe in dimensions. The only dimension I believe in is back in the 60s, the fifth dimension, the age of Aquarius. Remember that one? Believe in that dimension. But what I see, and the scientists, they'll say we only look at the facts. Well, as a Bible teacher, I only look at what the Bible says, and I can't find dimensions. What I can find is the first, second, and third heaven. And I can find that there are gates and portals that connect us with these different realms in the second and third heaven, and also in the heart of the earth.
Yep.
Now, while I would kind of walk back from the word dimension, there are entities that live in a spiritual realm. There are entities that live around us that we cannot see unless the Lord opens our eyes to see them. And these entities are interacting with humans. And the more that mankind chooses to sell their soul, if you will, for a bowl of porridge and allowing themselves to be genetically altered, the more they become like the entities that are altering them. And the more they have the ability to exhibit characteristics like we would see spirits and devils in the Word of God. And I believe, and we talked about this, we did a book review on Echo JC on Behold to Pay a Horse by William Cooper. And Mr. Cooper alleged, as others have, that there is actually a cooperation going on between the United States government and these Nephilim creatures. And whether they perceive them to be entities from another world, or whether they perceive them to be the devils they are, we can't really say. But I think that this is very much a possibility. And I think that the so-called leaders of our nation and the world, they are making themselves a Faustian bargain that is not going to turn out well for them. And I think the people that will wade through this mess are the people that are going to have their nose in the Word of God and their face in the floor praying and seeking God. Because the deception and the spiritual attacks are truly at an all-time high. And now's the time like never before for the army of God to pull together the wagons, if you will. And because I guarantee you, the enemy is circling the wagons. Yes, they are.
Well, speaking of circling the wagons, David, I knew that was going to get your gears turning. I knew your answer. I knew you, sir. I knew what your answer was going to be, but I was trying to compile a bunch of questions in commentary in the chat and to make a really good question for David Carrico. I knew he was going to go that route, my friend. I knew he was going to go that route. So interdimensional, and then thinking about portals and gates. You talked about the Book of Enoch. We've referenced the Bible many times. You look at the Ezekiel account. We just talked about that on Friday Night Live here on FOJC. And we have all these connections that there is a spiritual concept here. But here's another question too, David, is these entities have been known and documented to shapeshift and everything. I mean, they put it through the propaganda and the subliminal messaging in the television, the movies, etc. So you see shapeshifters, and it's always technology. it's like the technology can duplicate it if it can see your facial recognition, and all of a sudden these things start mimicking what they see. So, it could look like it on the surface, on the face level of it, that, hey, these are humans here. These are humans coming out of it, but it possibly could be, it could be Nephilim or whatever that are masquerading as humans. I mean, it could be something like that, and they're literally tearing through the veil, so to speak, or through these barriers of water. Who knows? Who really knows? But I do feel like that there is a connection with something that we've never seen in our modern time. And I think the days of old, they knew exactly what it was. When you go back to the Hopi prophecies, I think they knew exactly what he was looking at. And speaking of, I'll show a slide here that I wanted to incorporate here into the program. As you can see on the screen here, it looks like a giant flying potato, but according to the account, this drawing, there's people, those are supposedly people here standing and reaching up to it. So it's almost like nothing new under the sun when we talk about Ecclesiastes here, the biblical narrative. It's like we are marveling after it. The TV box and all the media and everybody wants to get us on a human conscious level of saying, hey, the UFOs are here, the 3i Atlas is here to take us away from whatever type of environment and conditions that we are in, because the earth is not fun no more. They've made us and indoctrinated us and put us in a box, so to speak. So now we're waiting on this great reveal for this so-called invasion to come. But it's just interesting to me.
Well, Di, they're already doing, Minority Report stuff.
That this drawing looks like the cylinder-shaped object, and it kind of goes back.
Okay, feel like I check it out, mate.
With the Muamua, the Skinwalker Ranch account back in the 90s with the cylinder-shaped object, the flying row in the biblical narrative. I mean, David, it's just, and I've even took, and I will say this for the chat here, everybody in the audience, I've taken for the last several years in my backyard, I put many videos up on Visual Disturbance channel where it has these cylinder-shaped objects. I've even took cameras with night vision and looked at them and said, here's the thing. I can't even see what I'm doing. It's so black. All I do is just click the button and just take random pictures. I'm just shooting the sky as many frames as I possibly can, David. And I'm getting these cylinder-shaped objects. But then there's planes and constellations, etc. But I really was picking those up several years ago. So what is that? This is way before 3.
Check this out, guys. This is Phil dressed up for his I can't move the camera. It's all twined up. Sorry, Phil, I can't move the camera. It's all twined up.
Yeah, Atlas came into play, as far as in modern times since 2020. But one would have to wonder and see if this is like a spiritual thing, David. Like we're like it's almost like once you introduce something to a society like PCs, computing, like floppy disks, etc., you're always craving more. You want to learn more. You want to create more. You want to be the engineers. You want to be the very first one to get to.
Phil, check this out. It's all tangled. Look. If I unplug it, I won't be able to stream. I'll show it tomorrow, buddy.
That certain type of technology, it's almost like there's imagery from old, like this image here. It's like there's nothing in the sun, and now we're craving something different, and we're reaching up and thinking we can reach to the heavens and be superior, like of the days of the biblical account with Adam and Eve, and thinking that we become like gods. I really do think that that's what it is. It's almost like we're a perception, and then once it just keeps on going down the rabbit hole, and we keep collecting data. And I think, this stuff starts manifesting. It's like we have to give the key, so to speak, the code, like we all have to be on the same accord to these things to reveal themselves. And they're saying catastrophic disclosure. There's claims that they want a peaceful disclosure. And even when this account with the 3i Atlas, they said that this, I think Avi Loeb said this, if I'm not mistaken, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he said this thing was supposed to go behind the sun back in October and go to an attack position. So here we are in November, almost in December, coming up in mid-November, and I haven't seen an attack yet, but I have seen some anomalies with this thing. So, David.
Now, Brian, what is our source and time frame on this picture here, Brian?
So this picture, I see it going across the online all the time, and I scraped it off the internet today just to look at it. And supposedly these are cave paintings from 10,000 years ago. And I do not know the timestamp or know where it's at or anything to do with that as far as the details where this location is. But it's supposedly a 10,000-year-old cave painting. So, you know, is there something here that is, you know, real, fake? Because look, AI and everything, I get it. But I've seen this imagery way before. I remember seeing it years ago looking at petroglyphs, and I remember coming across it.
Guys, how about we drop the argument and just enjoy the stream?
So take it for what it is. Is it real, fake, photoshopped, or what have you? It's interesting to say the least.
Well, it does look a lot like the images that you can see online of Three Eye Atlas, and many cigar-shaped craft have been reported all over the world by literally thousands of people. So it certainly is fascinating. And one of the preeminent UFO researchers, who's not a Christian, Mr. Jacques Vallée, he wrote one of the best UFO books of all time called The Passport to Magonia. And it's based on what is said to be a true story of a king in Magonia, a now extinct kingdom, that he actually encountered people in a craft that landed. And they were I think they were wanting to take this king to Magonia.
Diane, I'm laughing too. Sorry, guys, I'm laughing too.
And I don't think he went. But Mr. Vallée draw the similarities between satanic ritual abuse and all of the missing people with the stories of the fairies and the ancient entities, the elves, the fairies, the giants, and what have you. All of them come back around to the issue of missing children and child abduction. And when you get into the UFO phenomenon, it comes down to harvesting genetic material from male and female victims. And that's what they are, they're victims. And it comes down to so many testimonies that they are trying to create a hybrid race of half humans. And it looks like, and of course, it's just the old Genesis 6 scenario, and they're producing the same results in a little bit of a different way. In the Genesis 6 scenario, it was through actual procreation with human women that the fallen angels and the Nephilim tried to bring this about. And now they're doing it a little more sophisticated, but it's the same thing. It is the same thing exactly. So certainly, when we look at this, we're looking at things that connect with the most remote.
Okay, so they're right on board with Atlas being legit.
Antiquity, and it's the same old song and dance, but maybe it's
But guys, they do get things wrong. They think there's a flat earth.
A little more contemporary music that the devil is playing for people to dance with.
The biological material. There's a lot of things we got to watch what we say here on the YouTube world, and we got to respect the policies. But David, I think you might have hit the nail a little hard there on that particular topic, and you're dead.
Lobo, you saw with your naked eye or with a telescope? I used to have a telescope.
And what was on the screen here, we have us a little gray alien-like creature. On the left side of the screen, we have the original, when it started coming out, the imagery from Three Eye Atlas from a distance. Well, David, when I think about this, my friend, I think about the biological material, androids, etc. I think about the account we mentioned it many times here on FOJC, talking about the Manukuabu and referencing back to the Brazilian tribal leader in Brazil and Indian tribe. And they talk about the Manukuabu, and they don't even call them gray aliens. But when they get showed imagery of a gray alien, they call them the Manukuabu, the ones that take you to Sheol, the one that takes you to the center of the earth, the one that takes your soul and pretty much damns it. And I hate to use that term, but there you go. And the claim was that they would give them knowledge. And it's almost like the exact same account from the Genesis 6 setup. You know, they take their wives and their children, etc., for technology. So it's interesting to me, David, and I've said this many times on the Visual Disturbance channel, that I think that
they do, don't they, die? And another one's the rapture.
Manakwabu are a product of an android so-called biological species from the ant people that you claim that we've heard about many times here in this channel. We've talked about it.
Them ant people, Achilles, his soldiers were known as the Myrmidons, which means ant people. And there's a legend, I'm not sure how true it is, that they came out of the ground to be under Achilles. They came from the bottom of a tree in an ant nest. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying that's a legend out there.
I think it's a biological entity, and I think it's something that humans have done to themselves. And I think that's the trajectory that we are on now. When you look at all the robotics and everything, in this so-called transcendent phase of humanity, transhuman phase, and transhumanism is on the rise. And I think that the Manakwabu and the ant people, that's going to be something that we, unfortunately, if we keep changing and altering things, I'm going to say, I think this is what's going to lead to this whole gray thing. And I wonder.
Yeah, Diane, it's not a salvation issue. I'll tell you one thing I don't agree with at all. Once saved, always saved. That's just ridiculous.
For David, if this is something from the ancient days, and it's hard to peg it, who and what we're really looking at here. Are we looking at the Argotha Hollow Earth theory? Are we looking for entities that are under the ground? Are we looking at something the Nephilim crossbreed hybridization program, whatever you want to throw at the kitchen? Is this something going on with these grays? And that's what I think about the DNA samples and all that, about taking DNA, because you hear these stories all the time that they're time travelers from the future, or they're us from the future, and they're trying to stay in their bodies. They need some material from us to be able to survive. Every type of thing under the sun makes no sense sometimes. But I ask the question all the time on my channel, what if, David, that these are something to do with that? What if there is something to do with the grays?
Well, I think that these Nephilim are working in conjunction with human people, and I think that they are upping their technology, and I think they're upping their game, if you will. I was reading this evening. I went in, I pulled a few of my UFO books to go through from our UFO bookcase, and I pulled out a book by Rod Steiger. And Rod Steiger, this was an early one of the early UFO books, and it was entitled UFOs Are Dangerous. And I say, yeah, I'm with you on that one. And it had a very interesting account in there of multiple witnesses that saw robots that were coming out of a landed craft. Now, there are a lot of these reports about robots. One of the whistleblowers in front of Congress, he said he believed that some of the things they were seeing aerially were like drones or robotics that were controlled by an undersea base there. And they went from what we could call androids, something that would be a Terminator type of an entity, half man, half machine. And I think they have gone from the robots and the androids to where they are now. And
Gabe, my missus calls her Mika. I call her Molly, but we all call her Molly Moo. So her name's Molly Moo, Lobo.
According to a
she's chewing her feet now. You must be able to hear her.
Counts of people that are credible researchers, not nutwhackers, that they're saying that and claiming that they have the ability to reproduce one of these entities that they create, and that they have released them back into society. It's kind of like Valiant Thor, and that they actually have these people that are functioning within high levels of the government. Now, I'm at the place where when I look at some of these people that are running the government, I'd just soon have an alien running it, what some of these bright lights are. But I think, we've for so long, we've been catching up with science fiction. And I think it's quite possible that we're at the place where, as multiple counts are telling us, that we could have some of these hybrid entities, half human, half fallen angel, if you will, living amongst us, and quite possibly in some very powerful seats of authority.
Well, David, it's interesting. I just seen something.
Okay, guys, remember Valiant Thor? He worked in the White House in the 50s and 60s, and apparently he was from Venus, and he had an IQ of 1,600. So there are ETs in places of government.
The other day about androids being controlled by movement of, it was another country, I think it was in Saudi Arabia, if I'm not mistaken. They would take sensors on their body and be able to remotely control the robot, and it was autonomous. The robot was staying straight, and all they had to do was move. So if you think about that, these back in the day, you know, with these breakaway so-called civilizations, and I've been hearing from anything as far as certain companies, I'm going to watch what I say.
I just worked it out. I reckon he's wearing them glasses to hide his identity.
The Raytheon and some of these other places have technological advancements is so far superior than more than NASA or any of these other space organizations as of right now. And I think we did last year, Stephen Greer was talking about last year when we talked about is this disclosure film or broadcast that we did here on FOJC. He was even saying that he thinks that this was the 1800s. There was 1800 breakaway civilization, or, you know, having high.
Welcome back, Shawnee.
That so far precedes anything that man can do. And I'll just say this, David, you know, the more I think about this and think about what you just brought up there, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, control, you know, if they can fly the craft, VR headsets, technology as far as video game. I mean, they have the VR headsets, they have the technology, they have the suits to make you feel, you know, you can actually feel any kind of pain. I've heard all kinds of stuff. We talked about this on a bunch of other broadcasts.
Oh,
where,
shit.
you know, if there's a game where there's involving some type of projectiles, you'll
Hang
feel
on.
this so-called exoskeleton for video games. It's
I know, I just worked
So
it
it's
out,
got the
Di.
VR technology and everything, and it's so easy to do. Just think about it, folks. They probably could have pulled this off in the 70s, and with just very, very elementary technology. I mean, let's just face the facts. Things that
I didn't get it right, Di.
been hidden, and I would say, you know, there's probably
Hi, James. Good to see you again, mate.
military applications and other assortment of organizations that probably perceive us and technology what we see probably 1,000 years, probably because we're living in a time now. There's a great deception. We don't really know what's what, and we can't process our reality. We you know, everything is okay when you go out and you see your traditional things. But when you go out the outskirts, the places that you're forbidden to go, or you don't have the credentials, you know, at $35,000 to go to the shoreline of the Antarctica, you know, just to get a little beachside tour, you know, so to speak. So there's not going to be no way we can go to certain areas without being met with force.
I got him mixed up with Shawnee because he's got a long mono, or what do you call it? Moniker. And I just didn't read it correctly, and I assumed it was Shawnee.
That's a fact. So there's things that just makes you really think about where we're headed and really what is in plan for us in the future. And I think, David, that the whole premise behind all this is we're dealing with the fallen powers that presided back in the days of old, and even back then, you know, the villagers and people they didn't have no screens or anything or any kind of technological advancements. These people was in shackles, slaves, whatever it is, and they're just at the mercy of the kings, mercy of all that, and they're slaves, right? They don't know what's coming or going. They start seeing these accounts of these flying discs, these cylinder-like shaped discs, or whatever the case is. And I still to this day, David, I've been looking back at the Pangonian Giant. And I talked about this at Conspiracy Con, the Pangonian Giant story. You know, when he was, I know you can see me on the screen here, but you know how the giant was kind of pointing up, like telling the Spaniard, like, hey, you come from the sky? And the Spaniard's like, no, we come from the ship. You know, we come from the oceans, right? And I still to this day have been pondering on really what's going on there and how far down the rabbit hole we really are. Really, David, I really am thinking, not on a time travel mechanism, but is there something that has been hidden from us? And it makes me think of the TV series Westworld. You know, they hide behind these the rocks. They can pull the rocks back. It's like a big studio almost. It really is. It's almost like that once you start opening your mind and you perceive things different. You look at them through a different lens, literally. And that's kind of the way I feel about it sometimes, because things feel fake now. Things are not as real as they used to be. And that's what I always fight for on my channel, like, and then on the here too, on the FLJC. We're trying to fight for truth. We're trying to fight for humanity. And we really want everybody to hear the gospel and just really be joyful in a dark world. Even it doesn't matter what's going on with you. It doesn't matter what principalities coming down the street, whatever type of spiritual entity coming around. We don't want to be in dismay and give up, because no weapon formed against us shall prosper. We should be of good cheer and joy every day, you know, and it just blows my mind to think about this stuff. And in the days of old, you know, the people from antiquity was like, those are the Vimana, those are the Ifa, those are the angels, those are the demons, or whatever they were saying. And now we're saying they're UFO, terrestrial, whatever we are saying, the Draconians, Palladians, and David just goes on and on and on. But I think our perspective has changed now. And I think, you know, somehow supernaturally and everything that we've got this technology now, and we're catching up. But I think a lot of people, David, don't even know what 3-eye Atlas is. They really don't. I mean, a lot of people don't even know, and it's been talked about for all this time.
Yeah, and the whole story of the Patagonian giants is fascinating. And it's very similar to what the Apostle Paul encountered in Galatia. The Galatians were descended from the Gomorrhean giants. And when they went into England, they became known as the Druidic people. And they had a priestly class that ruled over them that were 1 foot to 2 foot higher than the average person. And this is the same way it was in Patagonia. There was Patagonian people, and there were these giants among them that were like their wizards and their overlords. And when they went in there, they absolutely declared genocide on these Patagonian giants. And few people realize that it was up into the early 1800s before they claimed that they had exterminated all of these people, but genocide. And they just hunted them down like animals. And I still would bet they didn't get them all. And
What if you had AI-powered defenses and dedicated specialists helping protect your money?
It's really an amazing thing. And this is not very far back. When you look at the time when the Spanish explorers were coming, and that there were that many giants there, and even up into the 1800s, that it was well known that there was this people there that had giants among them. So that's not very far back when you talk about the early 1800s.
Well, speaking of, David, I wasn't going to include this into the program tonight, but why not? You just mentioned the giants. Well, I kind of insinuated the giants.
I kind of opened the door.
Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Well, David, I mentioned the 3-letter agency earlier, talking about, it starts with the F. Well, there's a document, we just mentioned it earlier, and I thought, why not mention it now? San Diego, California. We've talked about this many times here on the channel. July the 8th, 1947. This pretty much spells it out, David. In 1947, they knew exactly what they was dealing with. And I'll zoom in here and we'll just hit the highlights, so to speak. Number one, part of the crew, they dislike carrying crews. Others are under remote control. There you go, David. Same thing. 1947 got remote control little entities, so to speak. Their mission is peaceful. The visitors contemplate settling on this plane of existence. Think about that. These visitors are human-like, but much larger in size. So David Carrico, and we've talked about this many times. I could speculate.
No, Lobo, that's next Sunday. So it's Saturday for you guys, and you can enjoy a Saturday night listening to music. It wasn't going to be today.
I looked back on this document. Supposedly there was no crash. What they're talking about here, because if you look, they go on and they contemplate. They are not Earth-like people, but they come from their own world, and then they do not come from a planet, so to speak, but if the ortheric planet with interpretates in our own, so to speak. So it's interesting to me when with our own to perceive us for our perception. So it's something like the interdimensional hypothesis. I'm like thinking about it when it interpenetrates our own reality. That's what it's saying. And when it talks about these bodies or these visitors and their craft also automatically materialize on entering in a vibratory rate of our dense matter. So David, there's talks about underwater facilities, David. I just heard the other day that there was some information disclosing of that with the underwater bases that these entities supposedly have. They're human. I've heard this is literally they're human. They have bone densities changed a little bit. They're a little altered, but it's because of the pressure of the water from the high depths of being under the ocean, underneath these conditions of being underneath the so-called bunker facility. But when you can connect the dots, you go back to 1947. I mean, how in the world are you going to even think about this anymore as far as 2025? I can't even believe many people don't even report on this document. But these disks also possess a type of radiant energy or array which will be easily disintegrate any attacking ship. So it's kind of going back to what we was talking about earlier, and they disappear from our vision without a trace, right? So then they also in this document talking about the astral plane, talking about corresponds with the Lakas and the Talas and all that good stuff. So when you look at the Lakas and the Talas, you look back in Hindu mythology, the different levels, and we've talked about this many times with the misread record, the vapor canopy, and there's vapor. We talked about the Saturn's rings, and all this stuff has some of this eerie connections that it's just it's so compelling to me, sir. I can't really shake it because it's like there was giants in the earth in those days and also after. And then, after the flood, they're called the Raphaim. And like you said, David, those little critters, maybe there is something to it, David. Maybe they was able to outrun and do things and somehow advance themselves over time. And maybe going back to that Patagonia giant, maybe there's something of an ancient breakaway civilization that as far passes there as far as a country, as continent, or anything that's even in the last couple thousand years. Who knows? I mean, David, what's your 10 cents on that?
Well, I believe the entire alien scenario that they want us to believe is a CIA psyop. I think this began in earnest with the book Beyond Roswell, or was it the day after Roswell? I can't say for certain, but this guy was absolutely tied in with Operation Paperclip, and I think it was a psyop from the very beginning. And all of these entities and where they come from, it is all just a way to keep people from believing something other than what the Bible says, that these are indeed fallen entities. Now, does that mean there cannot be?
Has Obama moved to Ireland?
Underwater bases? Well, what we know from the giants in the antediluvian world, that they were builders, weren't they? They built these megalithic structures that cannot be duplicated today. Well, if in the pre-flood world, these Nephilim were able to build some amazing structures, why would it be hard for us to believe that they were capable of building undersea bases or actual nut and bolt flying crafts? And I think some of the things we see are actually entities. And some of them, I believe, are the actual nut and bolt craft that these entities have built. Even in the Word of God, it talks about the chariots of the cherubim right there in Scripture. So it's very possible. I mean, if they could build these amazing megalithic structures that we still see the remains of today, why could not they build undersea bases or other things that are just as amazing to us now? It's absolutely no reason why we would consider that to be very, very possible. And
we call him Obama, as in BUM.
I think even likely, and I believe that done it. I think they have absolutely done and done.
Lobo, I believe in the secret program. I believe what they got on Star Trek and Stargate. I believe they've got them technologies now.
Well, David, I'll just say this. I think the granite, the crystal, different types of minerals that are on the face of the earth, these archaeology sites, these megalithic structures are telling you a story. And they're telling you, and they're preserved throughout antiquity until modern time. And Göbekli Tepe, they shut down all production as far as excavation, right? There's something very sacred underneath the ground, and they got to put, let's just say a little tourist attraction around these facilities. to keep it preserved because they need money to preserve the top of the soil and everything, right? I'm not knocking down anything. I'm just spitting the facts of what it is. And when we went to Cahokia Mounds, only a certain percentage of the land in Cahokia Mounds in Illinois, David, was excavated or touched. There was no digging. Okay, so God only knows what's underneath those in the Cahokia Mounds in Illinois. So it goes everywhere, all throughout America. There's so many different sites that just make you go, wow, like it's just baffling the mind. So my take on this, David, is there's so much under the ground that is being preserved for a certain purpose. And I think this is all intertwined with some type of the ancient antediluvian world. Because when you think about PCs and where we came from, as far as how far advanced they are now, you have quantum computers. And then you think about ancient PCs to modern PCs and the internet with the connectivity of the internet, and there's certain softwares and everything else that you have to have. Hardware starts wearing out. Software starts being not servable as far as being updated to some of the servers, on and on and on. But when you think about quantum, I think, David, that quantum computing is nothing new. And I think these sites have this energy field of something more sinister for us, I guess. There's something been hidden from since the days of Noah. And these things all work together as a unit. Okay, so you have all these proton accelerators, particle accelerators, and they're trying to wake up the antediluvian realm because it's all underneath the ground. They know that man doesn't have the digging tools. They have to access the energy levels, like the ley lines that we referred to many times on this channel. So it has to waken it up somehow, and somehow the quantum computers from this time are communicating to whatever they had back in the days of old. And I think this is what we're dealing with here. And I've heard anything from everything. When I heard this 3i Atlas also, David, there was a gentleman that's supposedly well creditable, and he's talking about the AI, this 3i Atlas is us from the future, I think a couple 100,000 of years. It has detrimental data for us to be able to give the insight. It's going to give us gifts. It's going to give us energy. It's going to change the perception, the consciousness of mankind to where we can perceive things different. We're going to be awoken to all this secret knowledge or whatever. And I kid you not, they're claiming that it's a time-traveling so-called pod that's going to be interceding some type of seed to wake America or wake up the humans to this new paradigm shift. I've heard everything, David. I've heard everything. It's blowing your mind. It blows your mind. So, speaking of, let's get back on the.
I've no idea, James.
Of 3i Atlas and show.
I did see that Elon Musk has released a flying car, and it only cost $6,000.
Some more photos here for everybody. So according to this is called Ray's Astrophotography, has captured a fresh jaw-dropping view of the interstellar visitor 3i Atlas, and this one is unlike anything we can see so far. The object appears as a bright circular disc wrapped in a faint expanding halo, almost like a rotating sphere, punching through space with a supersonic boom style shock glow. The soft plume stretching outwards adds to the mystery, hinting at an unusual activity or jet-like material steaming off the nucleus. So, David, I know this is not really the high-resolution photography that everybody wants, but according to that is some type of imagery from a telescope with Ray's astrophotography. So it looks like the moon to me, Dave, with a bunch of distortion. But when you look into hypersonic and supersonic speeds and everything, I just seen something the other day in Florida, David. It's not too far from Daytona, if I'm not, or one of the beaches down there. My brain's shutting off, but one of the beaches not too far from there, they was hearing these large booms in the Florida sky. So could we have something going on here that is relating to these supersonic booms? And maybe something's going on really what's in the sky and we just don't see it. Maybe there really is something like that. But according to the account, this thing has some type of propulsion system. And I looked this up and I thought it was very intriguing, David. And please chime in and interrupt me whenever you want, my friend. And that's what it's all about here on the channel. We work as a team, the two amigos trying to fight this thing out here on FOJC. So 3i Atlas, they've been claiming that it has an ion propulsion system. So if you look this up and you go down and look into anybody out there that's a physicist or what have you, the ion propulsion is a spacecraft propulsion technology that uses electrical charge to ionize a propellant typical of gas like Exxon and their accelerates the ions to high speeds for thrust. So that the method provides a very high fuel efficiency that's ideal for long duration space missions. So, David, it's moving, it's twisting, it's causing all, they're saying it's causing geomagnetic storms. I've heard everything. It's causing communication problems. And David, I don't know. But when you look at the propulsion, there has to be some type of intelligence to this thing. And the way its trajectory keeps moving, it looks like a craft to me, sir. It does. It looks like a little bit of everything, maybe spiritual entity, but biological and physical, like you said, the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, I have to agree. I believe it absolutely does. And these people will do everything they can to point you in this direction. And I believe, saw someone in the chat mention about Antarctica. And I believe that thing that crashed there in Roswell, I believe it took off from Antarctica. I believe it sure did. And what we have going on in the skies is a lot of it to keep us from looking what's going on under our feet and under the oceans. And I think the real source of these things is right here.
Actually, I had a chuckle at that joke.
On our Earth, we have absolutely under the water and in the caves, I believe, and I know you do also, that you can see the megalithic structures, how they're connected to one another, the massive cave systems we have in Kentucky that many people believe go all the way to South America. Every time when you see these people, someone else in the chat was talking about all of the dogman appearances, and to say, well, why are we having so many dogman sightings? Because we've got a lot of dogmen out there, and they're coming out. And these entities are being released. And I believe they're coming out from these crypto creatures that are coming up literally from the heart of the earth. We read in the Word of God where it talked about Cain and his lineage were banished from the face of the earth. Face means surface. That's right. And there are so many things biblical that tie in to giving us a picture of just what's coming, and it's in the Bible. The Bible says, Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, and boy, we've got the days of Noah upon us right now. And just like during the days of Noah, Noah was a preacher of repentance. He was calling people back to Jesus and back to repentance, and that's what we're doing. We're not pointing out these things because we need something to do. We're not pointing these things out for intellectual stimulation or try to scare somebody, but we're here to talk about the signs of the times, that indeed right now people need to look what's going on. They need to turn to Jesus and turn to Jesus right now. And anybody out there, if you believe, you can repent. The Bible says to repent and turn from your sins just with a willing heart and believe that Jesus died upon the cross as payment for your sin debt. You can have eternal life and new birth. And that is why we are here. We are here. And the Bible says some say with fear, hating even the garment, spoiled by the flesh or by the sin. And I want to read that for you because that started out, but it didn't come out too good. I had a computer malfunction. So I want to read that scripture in the book of Jude. So we have that. But that's what it's all about. We're here tonight to tell people about Jesus and looking at what's going on. I mean, these things are crazy. I mean, this 3i Atlas thing, this is just absolutely off the hook. And that's why we are here, to warn people about that. Now, Jude, the 23rd verse. Well, I'll read verse 22 with it. And it says, and of some have compassion, making a difference. And others save with fear, pulling them out of the fire, hating even the garment spotted by the flesh. And literally, When Jonathan Edwards preached his sermon, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, he drew the picture, and very powerfully so, that sinners were literally like they were walking across a fire pit on a net that was smoldering. That if it wasn't for the grace and mercy of God, at any moment, they could fall through that net into the fires of hell. And that's where we are if we don't know Jesus. And there's no reason. We need to repent and believe the gospel. And Jesus is there. He's reaching out to people in the last days. Now is a time when there's a harvest.
Okay, Phil, good night, mate.
People are turning to God because they see the absolute craziness that's coming upon this earth. So turn to Jesus now, the real one, in humble repentance and faith. Jesus will never let you down. He will not for one moment.
So true, David. So true. So true. Well said, my friend. Well said. You know, David, you got me thinking again. You know, you made a comment there that just got me going into a different.
With a Linked account, you can manage your tolls and avoid extra fees. Download the Linked app and pay for tolls the easy way.
Mr. Van Durek, I did a little program on Visual Service Channel that Mr. Van Durek spoke of trillions of artifacts, trillions of things that are on the face of the earth that are alien-like materials. And I go back in my mind and think about the Atlantis shows we've done, the Cities Lost in Time programs. I think about the different cultures, different tribes, you know, Kukulkan, Tenochtitlan, all these different sites, the Mayans, everybody, you know, the Aztecs, everybody. So they had interaction of some shape or form because you can see it on the ground, on these ancient temples. They look 3D printed on the ground. You know, they're talking about something specific that came from the sky or came from underground that gave them knowledge. And it's just blowing my mind when I think about it and really ponder on the idea that we could be dealing with something here. Because the account of Mr. Van Durek, he would talk about certain people, like an ancestral or somebody to the level or whatever it interacted with, either cloak itself or it will reveal itself to something that you think that is familiar to you. Okay, so it wouldn't put fear in you, right? So that's a whole nother ball game. We're talking about different types of rocks that they can materialize into something that is something familiarity to us, you know, like we see on TV. So it would make us panic. So that's a whole nother rabbit hole, David, because here in Kentucky alone, there's so many rock shelters, there's so many megalithic structures that just blow your mind when it comes to
James, where are you thinking of moving to Australia? Where are you going to go, mate? I hope it's near me.
Mounds and what have you, and cave tunnel systems that just blow that can't be perceived with the tools that we have today. So is the interaction with these entities and interaction with this ancient technology, and there has to be a certain type of human with a certain type of blood type to use them, because you go back to the Tibetan monks, there's the Tibetan monks, they have certain chants that they can only open these certain doors, and the monks either are not alive here and they're able to do harmonics with their body somehow and resonate some type of frequency to manifest to open these doors up. So it might be the same exact scenario, and maybe America's a hotspot for it. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why the Native Americans.
Yeah, there's been a bit of drama over these specs. I think they're to hide his face. I'm not sure though. It's not a good, if he thinks that's a fashion statement, yeah, it's a bad fashions from the 70s. But I don't know what's going on with his glasses. It looks like he's trying to disguise himself.
All the time that they said they was going against an adversary out in the woods, they didn't know what they were seeing. And speaking to the commentary of the chat there, talking about the dogman, what if it's like this, folks? What if it's like something of ancient days that it knows?
James, I done 14 years jail all up.
That you are of a certain historical bloodline, and it just uses imagery. What if it's holographic technology? Because, you know, the plasmoid, the plasma, the holographic tech, that's all out there. They're all claiming there's such thing. Yeah. What if it's just resonating something to do?
It's not unusual, is it, Diane?
With your family tree. Yes, it's real in some cases, but some of it might not be real, David. I mean, it might be a projection. It might be literally a spiritual application to make you leave a site because the site is ancient. The site might be a powder keg of information, and they don't want nobody digging around. And that's my take on it, David, because You can look this up. There's government places, but watch what I say, that are encapsulated with trees and forestry, and you'll lose cell phone signal. You'll lose cell phone signal. You won't be able to use a cell phone. So all these so-called forestries are either people missing. You know, there's a lot of people going missing. There'll be UFO activity, triangle crafts, people seeing Sasquatch, Dogman, Mothman, whatever, the white-headed, whatever that scary, I think it was the old hag lady that everybody used to see all the time. There was an old hag lady that everybody would see. There was all kinds of different cryptid creatures, plus some paranormal activity. And wonder if that's what it was, to keep everybody in check. The Native Americans would do an exodus, leave, and be like, we can't go there, it's dangerous. And I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of years ago. What if it's the same dance? And what if we're just dealing with it now?
I haven't got a false beard. Oh, his beard. I thought you meant me.
And now the powers that be have a way to manipulate us and intimidate us to be fearful, because they've done a really good job of mapping us out. And they would
that could be a strap-on beard. I'm not saying it's not.
Go back to the Genesis 6 narrative, because they knew the daughters of men. They took the daughters of men, and they was able to do that with force or subdue them to do whatever they're bidding. So, I mean, David, they've had plenty of good time to be able to map out, do some nefarious things to us, use us, pull on our emotion strings. And I think this could be setting up for the final storm, so to speak, the final invasion, whatever you want to call it. The
Diane, Mike from around the world won't even show his face. So Lobo, people do go in disguise.
Version of the new fallen angel narrative. I don't know, but it seems like it's coming pretty quick, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we don't know the absolute final specifics of just what's going to be, but it's hard.
Okay, they're on board with the basics of Atlas, from what I gather, as a mothership, not a comet. They believe more in a mothership. So do I, guys. I got to admit, I'm believing this.
To not come to the conclusion that the mark of the beast is going to involve AI. It's going to involve transhumanism. It's going to involve genetic manipulation. And these are the things that we all see, all of these ingredients on the table there in the antediluvian world. And we've got everything going on. And I believe that this final deception, and you know, my goodness, we've got the Pope and we've got the Jesuits out there at Mount Graham with their Lucifer telescope. We got it all. What else could there be to not lead us to the conclusion that we are in the time right before the return of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? And he is coming back. Yes, he will. He will come. And when he does, every eye will see him. He will split the...
Oh, good point, Di. Yeah, they're live, Lobo. Go and ask him why he wears the glasses.
He will...
I'll still be on.
Split the sky like lightning. Revelation 1:7. Behold, every eye will see him. Won't be a secret rapture, but it will be a visible, literal return, just like in the first chapter of Acts when Jesus ascended into heaven. And he said, this same Jesus, the angel said, this same Jesus will so return just like you saw him go into heaven. Literally, visibly, the real Jesus in his glorified body will be back. And all of these things, we've got the blue beam, we've got all of the deceptions, the AI. And I tell you what, man, we just have to be ready for anything. We cannot discount. The devil is a trickster. And I tell you what, he is the master liar. And we just have to at all times be ready, be instant, in season, out of season. And that's what we're going to do. We're not going to let down our guard. We're going to watch and pray. We're going to keep our eye on all of these things because they're so very important. And we could be seeing here in the near future a lot more things about this 3-eye Atlas. It's something that, boy, we don't want to let down keeping an eye on this one.
Yeah, and speaking of the account just a few days ago, they're talking about new evidence claiming that this is from the New York Post, David. They're saying that, and I think they're referring to Avi Loeb. Harvard scientist says the object seems to be technological thrusters of an extraterrestrial rocket and said it could deploy alien probes to Earth. And that was dated on November the 13th. And it's literally, they're claiming it's an extraterrestrial rocket. So, what if, David? What if it really is? What if it is? Okay. You go outside here and, here comes this Kentucky slang coming out of my mouth here in a few seconds. But when you go outside, you can't go outside without your phone to get your GPS coordinates to go to your mailbox. And I'm not being sarcastic or mean toward anybody. That's literally happening in this reality. And also going down the road, you can't function on a level to know where you're at with your navigation system. So my point is like when you see something that's not, you go outside and if you see a gorilla or a giant giraffe or something that level, a lion, you'll probably get your phone out and record it. So, because you'll be like, oh, look at that. But then on up the road, a vehicle fell over or something, and here comes the zoo. So it's interesting to me that people tend to marvel after things that they've seen thousands of times through magazines and everything. But when, it's like something that's been embedded into us, David, through subliminal messaging. If you've seen something that was a 4-footer little gray alien running around, crawling around the backyard saying, hey, come with me, I'll take you to the ground. I don't know about you, but down here in Hillbilly land, it'll probably pop, lock, and drop it. You know what I'm saying? So it's, but what I'm getting at is like, will people take pictures? Will people be like, can I go with you because it's boring here now? We are not here, that kind of thing. And it's just it's bizarro world to me. It's bizarro world. So like we can see something embedded in our skull since the 80s with movies, pop culture, whatever it is, video games, music, and they put the imagery in our heads. But that's what I'm saying. If you get introduced to a new imagery, you start to panic. You start to get fearful. So my point is like men's hearts will fail them looking after the things coming upon the earth. But like a lion can devour you, but you'll take your phone out and start taking pictures. But when an alien or a giant comes out, well, you're going to go up to him and say, hey, you want to have a cup of tea? See, there's a problem. There's a disconnect. And I think people are being in cognitive dissonance on a high order. So we're marveling after things that haven't even been seen yet. We see them on imagery or, something that's make-believe. But if it does come, what are we going to do? You're going to fall in line and fall on your knees and worship these things? Or is it going to be something to the level where we're just like going to avoid it and just say it's part of society like we are now? Because all these mechanisms, once you get conditioned and used to something, you just get accustomed to it. You just embed it into your society, your daily log. So like, I don't know about you, Dave, but this stuff is getting very more bizarre.
James, the professors are just lefties now.
The millisecond. So if this thing starts turning around, starts throwing projectiles, septic tank systems where they have to deploy their septic tank, whatever it is, and we come to find out this is humans, David, or whatever, what do you think about this as far as how this could really play out for future? And then another thing, after I get your comment, I want to touch base on the old video that we did last week to kind of get the comparison, the similarities on what we believe now and what we've researched and what we come just within a year's time. So, David, what do you think about all that?
These entities are devils. And there was an amazing account, and there's been a lot of accounts. There was one specifically with Mothman about where a person rebuked Mothman and he rebuked. And, these are entities. And the same way with people that are plagued with these alien abduction scenarios, in the name of Jesus, let them have it, rebuke it, get these things from you, declare war with them. Don't take that stuff from them, because these are absolutely fallen powers. Now,
that's a good point. He could be blind.
Talked about the encounter he had down in the the Three Corners area down around Dulce in underground bases down there, where he actually claimed that he was in a firefight and was wounded by some of these. And there have been others, just like the Great Whites and the stories there that come out of Nevada. So we've got this thing here, and David fought Goliath. So we cannot rule out actual, we know we have a spiritual element. Some of these are just devils, and some of them are the Nephilim that have they are devils themselves, actual physical Nephilim. And so there's different ways we have to deal with it. And we deal with them first and foremost spiritually. And we could now absolutely rule out some David and Goliath scenarios actually coming up here in the near future.
I agree, David. I agree with that. Yeah, the tall beings will come out of the ground. Let's hope not, but it looks like it. And I just want to clarify too, anybody in the chat, because I've seen people's commentary, I wasn't making fun of anybody or shape or form. I'm actually kind of taking low blows, but talking about myself pretty much. So when I was referencing, there's people that have been abducted. There's people that have literally been documented that people just can't help that. That's a very dark thing. And I know a lot of people, I actually know some people that have been abducted. So, and that's been documented. So it's pretty crazy. And my heart goes out to them. Like they were saying, rebuke them in the name of Jesus. And like I said, I just want to make sure and clarify I wasn't making fun of anybody when I was talking about going to the mailbox. I was actually being a little sarcastic toward myself. So, yeah, it's a very dark thing. So, David, I had this whole clip video. We was going to present it here. We was actually going to start a little earlier. We got real deep in the conversation here on Sunday Night Live. It was technically supposed to be a informative watch party. Here we are, an hour and something in. But folks, I was going to share this video we did here on FOJC Underground Church about a year ago. It was actually December 2024, and we called it "Is This Disclosure?" It is no longer up on the FOJC. It will be just bits and pieces will be part of this program here. And David, do you want to watch something or some of this to see what our perspective was back then in comparison to what we have now? Would you like to see some of this video footage, sir?
Yeah, let's check it out.
Hopefully I can get the audio to work. One moment.
He's not blind. He's looking at his hands for what he's doing. So he's not actually blind.
1 second, folks. One second, Brother David. Well, if you just give me one more moment here, I'm having a little bit of tech issue. Say something clever there, Brother David, for the audience here. And thank everybody for being part of the channel.
Yeah.
Thank y'all. Yeah.
Yeah, just want to welcome all of our new listeners to Sunday Night Live. Got a lot of new listeners. We welcome you. And we hope that you'll see what FOJC Radio is all about. It's pretty simple. We teach the doctrine of Christ, the commandments of God, and we preach the Bible. We believe the Bible has the answer for all things, and that the Holy Spirit will teach us about all things. So we are not, there's not any topics that we shy away from. And we're just so thankful for all of you that are joining us. And, people giving donations tonight, God bless you. And thank you so much for that. It's just very, very humbling. Thank you so much.
Here we go, Brother David. Yes, and I agree with that. Thank you all so very much for the love and support. Let's get into this old video here that we did with John Pounders, David Carrico, and myself.
And who knows, they might walk a couple of them, the big guys out themselves. So, this is stunning for this kind of a bold statement. And we're going to be talking about that tonight. But we're really thankful for Brian. He's going to kind of lead the broadcast tonight. And John and I are going to comment in as the Lord leads us. So, Brian, let's get this boom, boom, banger banging.
All right, David. So everybody, so this this has been one of those topics, especially last week when we spoke about the drones and all the UAPs, UFOs. It's ramping up. The hysteria, people are getting to panic mode. It's becoming mainstream. People don't know what's going on. They can't tell which wind is which. They're being, let's just say, gaslit to probably the highest degree ever as far as modern times. Have you ever seen so much insanity in all your life? In the last 4 years, they've been building up to this paradigm shift or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not trying to give any kind of, glory to what the devil's doing, but he sure does have people fooled and the vex is over their eyes. And it's just so apparent. It seems like we've been on a roller coaster ride from the get-go since 2019, 2020. It seems like things are just changing and shifting by whatever couple months. And now it's so rapid that it's about every day there's something new, something new to bring to the table, whatever type of terminology. And you look back and you think about historical, what was the ancients seeing? Did they see anything spectacular in the sky? Did they see red, blue, green orbs flying around? And we're going to talk about that tonight. So forgive me. My voice is a little shaky. I've got some teeth issues going on. So forgive me if I sound a little bit of mumbling going on. But I've got two of the coolest guys with me tonight to assist with me tonight. But let's just go ahead and get into it. David, I'm going to show that clip with Newsmax with Stephen Greer. David talked about this last night. But yeah, Stephen Greer, big advocate for ufologists. He's been trying to disclosure, transparency, all these different whistleblowers. He's on the Sean Ryan show. He's been talking about this for several years, and well, actually longer than that. But the last 19 months, he's been working with a bunch of individuals, and he knows about these secret covert agencies that are working, black ops projects, etc. And let's just get into it. And David, John, you chime in real quick before I get the video going. And I'll share it with you guys too. But everybody, check this out with Stephen Greer had to say.
Yeah, and do know Stephen Greer has definitely been a part of the agenda for a while. There's no doubt about that. And I think that he's even summoned.
And I just want to tell everybody I'm pausing it real quick as I see in the chat. Do not get confused, folks. This is a brand new broadcast that we're doing here. We're just doing like a watch party moment here, and we're doing similarities and comparisons to what we was talking about last year. This video that we're playing was in December 2024, and it's been coming up on a year. So I figured it would be worth the time to go back and replay bits and fragments of it. So enjoy. Me and David will be right back to commentary after the Stephen Greer video that we're getting ready to present. Okay.
Tries to summon these UFOs.
Oh, for sure, John. I agree 100%.
Yeah, it's interesting,
Agreed.
And Stephen Greer in the UFO community, he has a pristine reputation. And when he talks about UFOs, people listen. Even people in the mainstream media. And the thing, when I watched this Newsmax interview with Mr. Greer, it wasn't the typical, we got a goofball, ha-ha on, but they were taking it very, very serious. This drone flap over New Jersey has really, there's so much evidence in front of people's eyes. They're taking this very serious. Many people for the first time. So we're going to listen to this and we'll kick this ball around a little bit.
Absolutely, David. One moment, everybody. Let me get this set up, and then we'll go from there. Check this out.
Joining us now is the founder of the Disclosure Project, Dr. Stephen Greer. Dr. Greer, it is great to have you on.
As if you trust anything this guy says.
A pleasure to be speaking with you right now.
Thank you.
What is going on out there? What are people seeing?
Well, it's a complex story to make it very succinct. We did predict this 30 years ago that they would begin to launch some activity equivalent to a false flag to make it look like there's some sort of alien attack or threat. In reality, it's a response to what's happening. And I've recently told the incoming members of the administration this and people at the Senate Intelligence and Armed Services Committee that we have a team of about 6 different black sites that have been running illegal projects related to so-called UAPs and UFOs coming forward in the next 30 days or so. They will bring forth dispositive evidence of this and the fact that these programs have been run illegally and outside of constitutional oversight. This is a ramp up to divert attention from that activity and could lead to some other events that would be catastrophic. This is a very dangerous situation. Nothing people are seeing has anything to do with aliens or extraterrestrial intelligence. It has to do with trying to maintain the cover up on a secret program that went black, but illegal black, back in the late 1950s. So we're into 65, 70 years of some very dangerous operations. Now, these men that are defecting are coming out of some sites I've been at. I was in a helicopter last year, which after that I was almost killed, frankly. And we were over these black sites and saw the openings that go into underground facilities where there are the man-made UFOs that come out, but also where they have illegal electromagnetic pulse weapons where they target and down the extraterrestrial vehicles that are then reverse engineered.
Okay, let me stop you right there, Dr. Greer. Let me stop, just because I want everyone at home I want us all to be on the same page. You're saying that we have the technology to shoot ET craft, not of this planet, out of the air, and we are reverse engineering those aircraft.
100%. And there are multiple men coming forward. They've been with JSOC and Special Forces, who are also NOx, an unofficial cover in corporate world. One of them has been there about 29 years and is very senior and has all the evidence, and they'll be releasing the evidence and the information. Now, this creates a dynamic because it's happening before the inauguration. Plan to do it sometime between now and early January. And I've been working with these men for about 19 months.
So, David, I'm going to pause it there. And I want your take on this because I've seen the chat. I know it's been a year since we showed this footage. And if my memory serves me correct, sir, I believe Stephen Greer said, I think at the time we did this video, was claiming there was going to be UFO disclosure within a certain amount of time or a time frame. Maybe I'm wrong, but I remember in this 2-hour program that we did that you alluded to that. Here we are a year from now, and there's not.
Diana, volcano went off in Japan last night. So all the volcanoes are blowing.
Been any kind of disclosure. We're kind of spinning our tires. And honestly, it's exactly the same. I feel like we haven't really gained in much knowledge since then. What about you there, Brother David? It feels like we're in the same boat.
That is a Japan one. I said that before I read your link.
Now, so what's your take on this? I don't want to bore everybody in the chat was kind of upset that we shared the Stephen Greer thing. Nothing against Mr. Greer here, but when he made those commentary and saying that it's going to literally happen, this legitimacy is going to happen, disclosure was going to happen. Well, here we are, and where we at? So did we go through some type of time jump? Did we go through time travel? Did it not happen? What's really going on here, sir? What do you think, David?
Well, whenever somebody does that and they make claims like that and it doesn't happen, I take note of that and they lose credibility with me. And, I think a lot of the things that Mr. Greer said there, I would wholeheartedly agree with. But, Mr. Greer, it didn't come through. And he got all about it and made his prediction. It didn't happen. So there we go.
It's astounding.
I remember that.
Yeah. I think you said it in the video. It's astounding to me that we are here 1 year later and the pencil is barely moved across the page.
Yeah.
But if we go back and you think about everything that me and you brought up to the table, you've got a lot of research beyond me, my friend. But when you look at the Atlantis and the Lemuria and the Eye of the Sahara, all these continents are just speaking and resonating with something of an ancient antediluvian realm.
James, a volcano spews out more carbon dioxide in 1 hour than the whole of mankind's use of petrol. In 1 hour, it completely destroys all of man-made emissions.
I said this on my channel the other day on Visual Disturbance that I remember very correct. I'll never forget it, David. It was March of 2021. I think I was at at a Bible study up in Evansville, Indiana. Listen, David, 2021 in March, they was claiming that they all had to get together and take a little trip to Antarctica. The smart viewer, the smart person in the chat was talking about Antarctica. I figured I'd bring it back up. They was claiming back then in 2021 that there was an adversary coming, and they were scrambling to get all their information down because they was making the claims that we didn't want to lose this time around. So I remember back then, even I was doing some shows back in the day, and it wasn't back in the day, but a few years back, talking about star forts, etc. And I just had this thing where it's a speculation on my part, but then if you look at it, something's happened on our face of the earth, and we go to war with something. I mean, something comes out of the ground, something either comes above the sky. These cultures are talking star people or whoever they are. It always alludes to giants of old or giants Sistine or whatever it is coming out of these crafts, like what we've mentioned earlier. But something's just not, it either is a disconnect or there's been resets. There's been the biggest cover up in mankind that I've ever seen in my life. So we could go down the rabbit hole of like how they pulling this off, how they be able to find the excavations of bones, and how they supposed to get rid of all this and get rid of the technology. Humans are supposed to be re-engineering it. And I will point this out. Stephen Greer, though, did you hear what he said? He said there was 6 sites. Just let me rewind here. Just recently, Mr. Tim from Tennessee is on record saying this, saying that there was 5 to 6 sites underwater bases. And I talked about this earlier in the program. So what if that's the sites that Stephen Greer, take him however you like him or if you don't like him, whoever. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I get it. I'm not going to say anything as far as knocking the gentleman down. My point is, what if it is some truth to these sites that are under these underwater bases, and we're dealing with something of like what you referred to, the Marine Kingdom, the video that you and Jillian done together, especially a conspiracy called the Marine Kingdom. What if there's a hybridization program going on? And like I said earlier, but the dense bone density of these people, and there's humans underneath the water. What if it's a breakaway civilization, and we're not privy to their technology? We don't understand it. We can't comprehend it. We can barely understand basic biometrics. So my thing is, it literally could be something to that magnitude, David, that we're living in this suspense right now. We're looking for some type of savior. Seriously, I'm not throwing off on Jesus. I'm talking about folks are looking for a way out of reality. They're looking for a different savior. They're looking for something different. And this is what I'm saying, this great deception across the land of mankind. It's tuning up. We're getting hyped up. It might, at the rate that we're going, that clip that we just showed from our last year's program, we might be having to do 2 or 3 more years until we get to 2030. But David, technology's on the rise. Biologicals are on the rise. They're claiming they have them. Mr. Grush says they have them. Military bases, all this stuff.
Dad, I'm sick.
Man.
Makes healthcare seriously accessible. It's the platform that connects you to an experienced doctor within the hour. Convenient when you're busy.
Request a consultation now at updoc.com.au.
Together. It's almost like it all is just one big puzzle piece, and me and you've got like a corner of it. And I think it goes back to the Bible.
What's in a few notes? Truth.
You referenced the Bible. This is what this channel's all about, is underground church and biblical narrative. And we've researched so many different things and talked about so many different narratives. And the Bible's speaking about this and talking about even the days of Egypt. And I've mentioned Thutmose III many times here. There was these craft in the sky.
James, you can create fossils in 3 months. They've gone to these waterfalls. They've chained their teddy bears to the bottom of the water. And within 3 months, they're covered in calcium and they turn into a fossil. And that radar dating with the rocks, that's not accurate. It's completely not accurate. And in regards to the dinosaur, they found dinosaurs with wet tissue, the bones with wet tissue. They're millions of years old, but there's wet tissue in them. That doesn't make sense.
Whenever he reigned, and I'm not talking, that's not in the Bible, but Thutmose.
I'll see if I can find the video I'm looking for.
Talking about alien craft in the sky or something to that magnitude for 7 to 10 days. So what Mr. Greer's here talking about, This has never stopped. I will tell you this: the drones, David, and the orbs, it's never stopped. It's actually heightened. They are being seen in Denmark and all these other countries, and there's planes that are seeing them, hitting them, whatever. There's airports getting closed. David, it goes on and on and on, and it is so surreal where we're at. So either the magnetic field is weakening, the craft and everything. These planes are having malfunctioning in midair because these craft. I mean, what is it, David? I mean, I really will just say this before I go long here. I think the breakaway civilization hypothesis is where I'm at. I'm thinking across. If you look at the Admiral Byrd account, look at the different islands, the land masses, the continents that Admiral Byrd was reporting on. That's your breakaway civilization. That's your breakaway civilization. He said there was nowhere no man has been there before. Well, let me just throw this out there. Man has been there. Don't let them fool you. So I'm saying, just throwing it out there with speculation, that we have a breakaway civilization, and we're trying to catch up. And I think this is what this push is for the Stargate program, the Project Stargate, and the Golden Dome. The Golden Dome, because there's
whatever they date the rocks with, a volcano went off like a million years ago. I don't know what I'm saying, guys. I forget my point.
Because we already have things set in place that is been to be able to combat human stuff, but I think the Golden Dome is something to do with whatever that we're talking about here tonight. Extraterrestrial, demons, angels, UFOs, whatever it is. I think the Golden Dome is something that is going to be of a superior shield to whatever's coming. That's just my take.
Yeah, and there very well could be a connection between what Mr. Greer said and what Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee, both pointing out them 5 locations. That's interesting. And I won't throw Mr. Greer totally under the bus for that not happening, that he might have had every reason to believe it was going to, and something happened, but still it is noted. That makes me very weary when I hear stuff like that. But it reminds me of a theory that Ivan Sanderson said, and we explored this also on another Sunday Night Live. And they say they know of 5. Well, according to Mr. Sanderson, there are 12 specific places of extraordinary electromagnetic activity in our world, and some are underneath the ocean. And as a matter of fact, I believe most of them are, according to Mr. Sanderson. And these places and these vortexes, if you will, are places like in the Bermuda Triangle, the Devil's Triangle, the Alaska Triangle, where these disappearances happen on a regular basis. And I believe, the Bible, Mr. Sanderson said he believed that there were 12. Well, the Bible talks about the 12 gates to New Jerusalem. Jesus said the gates of hell will not prevail against the church, and the gates of hell couldn't prevail against the church unless they had something coming out of those gates, and I believe they do. So that's where we're at, my friend. We are at a time where literally the gates of hell, I believe, are being opened, and we're going to have to up our game. It's time, spiritual warfare.
James, what contradiction?
As we once knew it, we have to up our game, if you will. We're going to have to really be in prayer.
James, what's my contradiction, mate?
In what's coming. And that's what we just really need to draw close to Jesus. And we're going to be fine. And if you don't, it's not going to work out real well for you.
Absolutely, David. Absolutely. And David, I just want to say this. I was going to play more of the video, but we're coming up almost 2 hours here. And
I'm out after this too, guys.
Is 3i Atlas bringing in disclosure? But here's the question, another question. Are we going to understand what's above our heads instead of believing that they're meteorites and comets?
Okay, good point, James. I got my thought on that. A volcano went off, and when it cooled, they data rocked. They done that data dating thing, whatever it is, and it said the flow was like 1 million years old. But at the bottom of the flow, it said it was 12 million years old. they're not the numbers, but that's what I'm saying. It's the same rock spew where one part's written as like, for argument's sake, 10,000 years, and the bottom of that rock flow doesn't say 10,000 years, it says 1 million years. That's what I was saying. I knew I was making a contradiction with that million thing. I just lost train of thought.
And let me explain. I have this theory on this, David. If we're able to if entities and things to that nature are able to cloak themselves on the face of the earth when man walks by them, they can darn well sure do it in the air. So come on now. So if there's a craft and they're saying it's a rocket or a rock coming, it's coming at 1 billion miles an hour, and it's a rock with certain types of pixie dust on it, whatever, I think it can be done. Because we're looking at a foggy glass here. We're not really focusing and pondering on the idea that our
Lobo comes with life, mate. You get a bit wiser the older you get. So don't feel bad.
World, we've been taught things and skewed on things that are not exactly correct when it comes to the earthly things. We don't really understand what the earth has to give.
James, there's a video out there called Dr. Grady McGurdy, 25 Proofs the Earth is 6,000 years old. I've got it on like videos. I just tried to find it on normal YouTube search, and there's nothing there. I got 3,000 like videos. I'll go through them tonight and find out where his is, and I'll play it tomorrow or the next day whenever you show up. And it's very convincing, mate.
But we don't understand where we even live when we walk out to sites that are beyond our understanding. And it takes a very well-versed archaeologist to see and navigate around the minefield of stuff that's been buried underneath since the days of flood, Noah's flood, or the days before prior to that. So we got us a very big puzzle and a jigsaw.
Amen, Diane. Everyone's intelligent in their own way. Amen.
Puzzle indeed. It's like a big Jenga game, and we're just trying to play and peel back some of the pieces. And I'll just say this before I give it back to you.
Okay, Lobo. I don't know what time it is in the UK, but take away 3 hours from now, and that's when I'll be streaming again. So I'll be streaming in 21 or 22 hours. I'm not sure.
But I think
I stream every day, mate, except for Tuesday. But Gabe's not here, so I can stream tomorrow.
Think about Ephesians 6, verse 12, the principalities, the wickedness, darkness, dominion, and all that, the domains of angels and different things to that scenario. And I think about, like I've been saying many, many times here, nothing new in the sun. And it's just...
I'll find it, James. You watch, I'll find it. Mate, I'm a pretty smart guy. I wouldn't say that if I wasn't convinced.
So many things that directly tie back to the biblical narrative, and even other ancient texts like the Enoch, etc. And we really truly don't know what's happened. There's things that are hidden, and like the Bible says, there's certain mysteries that God will not permit. There's certain mysteries that you might not ever figure out, unless He wields the ability for you to understand it. So it's very interesting times, David.
Yeah, and I think I have to apologize to somebody. I was going to put someone in timeout, and I think I put the wrong person in there. So excuse me, and we don't mind someone putting in a different opinion, but you just get to arguing and going on about stuff that we believe in. That's going to get old. Don't appreciate that. But so apologies to somebody there. I think I missed on my clip. But anyway, we just want to thank everybody that was a part of this broadcast tonight. And I want to thank Brian for all that he brings to the table on a continual basis. Thanks to all of you that were a part of this broadcast. And just real thankful for all of you that like to hang out with us on a Sunday night, looking at these things.
Thanks, Lobo.
It might be a good idea to put all eyes upon the 3 eye. But what are your final thoughts?
Sometimes I wear a wig.
As we bring this to a close.
Well, David, I wanted to bring this up, and I had it written down in my notes there a couple weeks ago.
Okay, guys, I'm out. God bless. See you tomorrow.
got something to share real quick for my last few words of commentary here. And I looked up Atlas, like I think I typed in occult meeting of Atlas, and I remember we talked about it vaguely on one of our shows we did there a month ago or so, and I think it meant hidden or secret, and it also means Greek Titan to a collection of maps. There's no single occult atlas, but the two terms through